Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Dina Thompson. In the summer of 2022, the British media reported the release of one of the country's most dangerous criminals, 61-year-old Dina Thompson, known as the Black Widow. Today, I'll explain how she became infamous across the UK and why some people still fear her. Dina was born in 1960 in Hendon, a suburb of London. Her family was not poor, but barely made ends meet. Dina's father, a prison guard, was passionate about sports. He encouraged Dina to join a sports club, where she practiced gymnastics. He often participated in competitions and traveled abroad, often taking Dina with him. Dina grew up to be a cheerful and sociable girl, which made it easy for her to meet and connect with boys. After graduating from university, Dina found a job. In 1982, at the age of 22, she met a young man named Lee Wyatt on a date arranged by Lee's cousin. They felt a strong connection from the first meeting. 2 years later, in 1984, they married. After the wedding, they moved to Yapton, a small village in West Sussex, England, with a population of only 3,000. In Yapton, the Dana family welcomed a son, and Dina began working as a treasurer at a construction company. Meanwhile, Lee started a business selling designer stuffed toys, which they designed together. Their neighbors considered them a typical family. The neighbors did not have a close relationship with the Dina family. However, the attractive Dina often attracted the attention of local men. In 1991, the 31-year-old Dina met a local journalist named Julian Webb. He wrote articles about products sold in shops across West Sussex. Julian, 28, asked Dina to model clothes and display household items for money. She accepted his offer, and soon her picture appeared in the local newspapers. A month after Dina and Julian met, neighbors spotted them kissing near Julian's house. A few months later, Julian took Dina to his mother and expressed his desire to marry her. Julian's mother was surprised at how quickly things had progressed. She noted that Julian had met Dina in May, and by August, they were planning their wedding. Soon the whole village of Yapton knew about it. It was also known that Dina was still legally married to her first husband, Lee Wyatt. However, Lee had been missing for a long time at the time, and no one knew where he was. On the north coast of Cornwall, in the small resort town of Newquay, a young man named Colin Mitchell arrived and began looking for work at various entertainment venues. He was hired as a junior manager at an arcade. Colin provided his papers and explained that he had left West Sussex due to some problems. Initially, he appeared friendly and cheerful to everyone. However, it was soon realized that he was slightly deaf, which sometimes made communication difficult. As a result, the arcade staff often had to approach him and gently tap him on the shoulder to get his attention. It was soon realized that Colin Mitchell was his alias. His real name was Lee Wyatt. He explained that he had escaped trouble in West Sussex. Living with Dina in the village of Yapton, his wife was involved in toy manufacturing. Their most popular product was a leprechaun called Sean, who sold well both locally and outside the county. In the summer of 1991, Dina informed Lee that the Disney Corporation was interested in Sean the leprechaun and was willing to pay $50 million for the rights to the character. Dina then informed Lee that the mafia had found out about their arrangement and was threatening to kill the entire family unless they handed over most of their money. Dina convinced him that he needed to flee immediately to protect his family. Lee obtained documents under the name Colin Mitchell and traveled to Cornwall County. The decision to flee may have saved his life. However, the real threat was not from the mafia, as there had never been any deal with Disney. Dina made up the story and convinced her husband that it was true. While on the run, he lived in an unfamiliar city under a false identity as a homeless person. He worked and sent most of his earnings to his son, continuing to support the family. On November 2, 1991, Dina used her money to marry her second husband, journalist Julian Webb. Lee was away and unaware of the situation. Julian was overjoyed to marry Dina, believing she was now his. However, a few months after the wedding, Dina informed Julian that she was terminally ill and that her company was pressuring her to resign. $26,000 had gone missing from the accounts of the companies where Dina worked as treasurer, prompting the police to focus their investigation on her. Dina claimed that her first husband, Lee Wyatt, was responsible for the theft. She alleged that he had stolen the money and gone into hiding, but that he had now returned to their village of Yapton and threatened her. Dina produced threatening letters from Lee and shared recordings of phone calls in which he spoke of seeking revenge. She also alleged that he had come to her home and assaulted her. However, there was no evidence to support this claim. Notably, a few months after Dina married Julian, Lee returned to Yapton when he learned of Dina's marriage. Lee created scandals involving Dina. The police believed Dina's accusations and began pursuing Lee, who went into hiding. The lies complicated Dina's life and the lives of the men involved with her. Julian had given Dina $25,000 from his savings to treat a terminal illness that she claimed was the reason she had lost her job. However, as the money began to run out, Julian began asking Dina about her progress. To his surprise, Dina had no medical documents to prove that she was actually ill or receiving treatment. On 30 June 1994, Julian celebrated his 300th birthday at home with his wife, Dana. In the evening, Julian's mother called, but Dina answered the phone and said that Julian was feeling unwell and unable to talk. The mother suggested that Dina call a doctor, but Dina did not follow this advice. That night, Julian died. Forensic experts concluded that he had died from a drug overdose, but they were unable to determine whether his death was a result of criminal activity. Dina insisted that Julian had chosen to end his life. When police questioned the neighbors, they learned that there had been unusual activity involving the couple 2 to 4 days before the tragedy. Dina and Julian had been arguing loudly about money, which surprised their neighbors, as they were not used to hearing arguments in Dina's household. Julian was generally considered a positive and cheerful person. The day after Julian's tragic death, Dina went to his workplace to ask about receiving $35,000 from his insurance policy. However, it is reported that she never received the money. In addition, their marriage was considered invalid because Dina was still the legal wife of her first husband, Lee Wyatt. Dina insisted on having Julian's body cremated, but his mother strongly opposed the decision. At Julian's funeral, Dina wore a black leather miniskirt and a revealing black blouse, showing no sign of grief. After Julian's death, she turned her home into a meeting place for men. Although many men visited her, none stayed for more than a day. In 1997, Dina officially divorced her first husband, Lee Wyatt, and won her freedom. The following year, she met Richard Thompson. Shortly after meeting him, Dina confided that she was battling breast cancer. Richard, who supported her, gave her all of his savings and promised to make the rest of her life enjoyable. They traveled from England to Florida, where Richard had a lavish wedding ceremony at a luxury hotel with staff as witnesses. After the wedding, they moved to Brighton, East Sussex, on the south coast of England. Richard had always wanted to buy a boat and pursue a career in fishing. Dina encouraged him to take courses to start a yacht charter business for amateur fishermen, while Richard would take on the role of captain, helping beginners learn how to fish. 8 months after the wedding, Dina told her husband that she wanted to give him a special gift. On January 1, 2000, they decided to take a shower together. Dina then asked if she could tie Richard up, and he agreed. She tied him up, gagged him, and covered his face with a towel. Richard then waited, confused, for what he thought was a prank. Suddenly, Dina hit him with a baseball bat, followed by another blow. Fortunately, Richard freed his hands and lunged at her. At that point, Dina grabbed a knife and stabbed him in the shoulder. Only then was Richard able to grab Dina and subdue her. Richard reported the incident to the police. Dina accused her husband of assaulting her, claiming that she acted in self-defense. The next day, a real estate staff came to Richard's house, expecting to meet Dina to sell real estate. Richard was surprised when he opened the door. When he saw the agent, Richard realized what was going on. He suspected Dina had planned to kill him, sell the house, and disappear, knowing that since he was going to America, no one would look for him during the trial. Dina drained Richard's bank account by forging his signature. She also accumulated a large debt on his credit cards. In addition, they reported other victims, former lovers of Dina, including businessmen, teachers, prison guards, and even a convicted felon. All of these men claimed that Dina manipulated them, demanding money and pretending to be seriously ill. Dina asked for money from many men. While some gave her money willingly, others had their accounts secretly drained by Dina. The truth about her first husband, Lee, was revealed. In 1991, Dina stole money from her workplace, where she worked as a cashier. At the time, she produced threatening letters allegedly written by Lee and played recordings of phone calls in which he spoke of possible revenge. However, in 2000, it was revealed that the letters and recordings were made while Lee was preparing to escape from a mafia organization. Dina had convinced him to do so in order to make people think he had disappeared and abandoned her. Lee believed this would protect him and their son from threats from the mafia. In 2000, a jury acquitted Dina Thompson in a case involving an alleged assault on her third husband, Richard Thompson. The judge described Richard as a paranoid attention seeker. Although Dina was cleared of the felony charge, she was convicted of 15 other counts of financial fraud. She was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months in prison. A strange incident involving her husband, coupled with complaints about her from multiple lovers, led to an investigation into Dina and the death of her second husband, Julian Webb. Dina gave conflicting accounts of what happened to Julian. She told her mother that he had sunstroke after drinking too much on his birthday and fell asleep in the sun. However, Julian's mother did not believe this story, knowing that he had always been healthy and rarely drank. She often urged Julian to leave Dina. Dina claimed to investigators that Julian had taken his own life, but those who knew him found this hard to believe, as he was usually cheerful and rarely had conflicts with anyone. To a former co-worker, Dina mentioned that Julian died from a steroid overdose to maintain his healthy physique, but this was also false. A friend of Dina's revealed that she had hinted at poisoning her second husband, Julian, by secretly adding the drug to Julian's favorite spicy food. The police tracked down the owner of a small restaurant where Julian frequently ordered. They recalled that on the day Julian died, Dina had gone to the restaurant and ordered rice with curry in a takeout box. Police speculated that the strong flavor of the curry may have effectively masked the bitter taste of the medication. In October 2001, 7 years after Julian's death, the investigation into his death continued. Julian's body was exhumed and sent for a re-examination. New tests, unlike the original ones, found higher levels of the drug in his system. It was discovered that he had been poisoned with a large dose of antidepressants, which Dina had mixed into Julian's favorite dish, curry rice. In addition, she had added a large dose of aspirin to the drink he had with his meal. On his birthday, when Julian's mother called to congratulate him, he was lying in bed, almost unconscious. At that point, there was still a chance to save him. The trial of 43-year-old Dina Thompson took place in 2003. A senior police officer said she was the most dangerous woman he had ever met. The judge also noted that Dina was one of the best prolific liars he had ever seen. In 2003, Dina Thompson was convicted of murdering her second husband, Julian Webb. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 16 years. Dina's crimes were reported on numerous television shows, crime magazines and newspapers, earning her the nickname the Black Widow. In 2010, police began investigating the disappearance of Stoyan Kostov, one of Dana's first lovers from Bulgaria. Dina and Stoyan were in a relationship from the late 1970s to the early 1980s. During her childhood, Dina and her father traveled to competitions in various countries, including Bulgaria. During one of these trips, Dina met a young man and they quickly became close friends. Stoyan's family mentioned a number of strange incidents involving him and Dina. After their brief relationship, the young man mysteriously disappeared and was never found, dead or alive. It is suspected that Stoyan may have been one of Dina's first victims. While in prison, Dana attended rehabilitation courses and worked with a psychologist. In 2021, the police investigating her case expressed concern about her chances of being released, stating that she would commit another crime. Dana would not be able to stop, as she showed no remorse. However, during her time in prison, she was considered a model prisoner and always spoke positively. Dina Thompson, 61, was released from prison in the summer of 2022. Upon her release, she must notify the police of any romantic relationships she has had. She is also banned from contacting her ex-husbands and other men affected by her actions. Dina must also wear a tracking bracelet to monitor her movements, abide by a curfew, and provide details of her banking transactions if requested by the police. Richard Thompson, 63, who still lives in East Sussex, runs a property maintenance business. After learning of Dina's release, he expressed concern for his safety. Fully aware of what his ex-wife could do, he feared that his peaceful life was over. In July 2022, British newspapers published photos of Dina leaving a discount store carrying a large bag. Dina is now free to walk the streets of England. It is uncertain whether she has lured more victims or whether she has truly changed and chosen to live a better life. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Carrie Farver. In 2012, Dave Kropa, 34, moved to Omaha, Nebraska to start managing an auto repair shop he had recently inherited. Shortly before this, he separated from his wife, Amy Flora. They have 2 children together, and for the sake of their children, they remain on good terms and see each other regularly. Dave is trying to find a new woman to date, so he created profiles on several dating sites. He is friendly, sociable, and easygoing, so there are many people who want to meet him and want to start a relationship with him. At that time, he did not want a long-term or serious relationship, and he was content to enjoy fun moments with women. On an autumn day in 2012, Carrie Farver visited Dave's auto repair shop to have her car checked. Carrie was a 37-year-old, single mother. She has a 14-year-old son, and he is aiming to become a programmer in the future. When Dave met her, he was instantly infatuated with her and asked her out on a date. But she declined, saying he wasn't her type. However, he was captivated by she and wanted to get her attention. He later found her online and sent her a message. Although she didn't respond immediately, she eventually replied, and they started communicating. When she returned to the repair shop for more work on her car, he invited her to dinner again, and this time, she accepted. Carrie was a very cheerful, independent, and energetic woman. In school, she was among the top students, and teachers believed she had a promising future. Carrie was close to her mother, dear friends, and acquaintances. She always wore a smile and never gave up, no matter the situation. However, her life changed significantly at age 22, when she became pregnant by her boyfriend. Her boyfriend didn't like this, and he refused to take responsibility for raising the child. This didn't deter she, though. She quickly decided to keep the baby, become a single mother, and will not depend on boyfriend. She paused her university studies to find a job. She then moved into an apartment near her mother, Nancy. She also graduated from college and eventually got a job in IT with a higher salary. Being a mother came naturally to her, and her life revolved around her son, Max, and she chose not to pursue new relationships, dedicating herself entirely to her child. Dave's first date with Carrie went very well, and she was delighted about their time together. She later shared with a friend on social media that she hadn't laughed so much in years. Their conversation flowed freely and naturally, as if they had known each other for a long time, and Carrie was eager to continue the relationship. Furthermore, Dave also wants to build a romantic relationship with she. He even confessed that he was in love with her. He decided to stop talking to others on dating sites for her. However, before Dave met Carrie, he knew another woman named Shauna Elizabeth Gollier, who went by Liz. She was the first person he met online after divorcing his wife. He found her to be a sweet and cheerful person. Both had children around the same age, and she expressed interest in having an open relationship, similar to Dave's desire. She managed a small business and took care of housework. They felt very compatible, so they saw each other regularly for the past 6 months, maintaining a sexual relationship. Over time, Liz became more and more difficult. She wanted to spend more and more time with Dave. However, he doesn't like it, and he would rather communicate with other women. This causes their relationship to deteriorate and he begins to distance himself from her. However, Liz kept interfering in his life, often giving him unsolicited advice, which stressed him out. Liz also knew that he had been dating different women before he met Carrie. She felt very dissatisfied with all the women he dated. Dave wanted to break up with his girlfriend, Liz, and suggested she date other people. However, she refused to break up and has deleted her dating website. She became jealous of other women, including Carrie, and even of Dave's kids and ex-wife. As a result, he frequently had to reassure her. During a date with Carrie, Dave noticed missed calls and texts from Liz. Liz insisted on entering his apartment immediately because she forgot something there during her last visit. Dave told her he was with his girlfriend and couldn't let her in right then, but he can do it after he gets home. However, Liz kept pressing him to let her in, claiming she urgently needed her belongings. In the end, Dave agreed. He and Carrie returned to his place. When they entered the house, Liz showed up, pounding on the door and angrily demanding entry. Of course, this situation clearly ruined their evening, but Carrie sympathized. She suggested that Dave resolve the issue with Liz first, then they could go to her house where they wouldn't be bothered. And they did just that. Dave opened the door, returned Liz's items. Then he and Carrie left together. Carrie's trip back to Macedonia, Iowa, took about an hour. In the morning, she told Dave she was happy with their current relationship arrangement. She didn't want a serious relationship, marriage, or children. She just wanted to enjoy their time together. This understanding brought them closer, as they shared similar views on relationships. Their relationship thrives on mutual understanding. Dave found she very attractive, smart, and charming. Over the next 2 weeks, they saw each other every day. Even though she lives in a neighboring city in another state, but she still visits him during the day to have lunch or spend time together. She often stayed overnight. She had a high-paying job, holding a key position in a large IT company. She dedicated most of her time to work and her son, leaving only a small portion for leisure. This perfectly aligned with Dave's lifestyle. In early November, Dave started considering whether to change his main rule and move in with Carrie. Around the same time, while in Thailand, Carrie received several friend requests on social media from strangers. She noticed one request came from someone in her hometown of Macedonia. She sent a message asking if they knew each other, but never got a reply. This felt odd, so she told Dave, but they didn't think much of it. On November 13, 2012, Dave woke up early and saw Carrie working on her laptop, finishing edits on a new project she was set to present to management that day. She kissed him goodbye and left, planning to meet him again in the evening. During the day, Dave got a message from Carrie asking if he wanted to move in with her. This was surprising because just a few days earlier, they had agreed not to live together but to continue their relationship casually. Although Dave had been considering the idea, but he felt uncomfortable with this, so he politely declined. He reminded Carrie of their previous discussion to keep things as they were for now. However, the other person responded with a barrage of insults, showing outright hatred for him. The messages were filled with hysterical threats, indicating that the relationship with his dream woman was likely over. Dave was stunned by her words and didn't recognize the person he loved. Consequently, he cut off all communication, went home after work, and noticed that none of Carrie's belongings were there. He assumed she had broken up with him and taken all her belongings with her. A few days later, police officers arrived at the auto repair shop where Dave worked. They informed him that his girlfriend, Carrie, was missing. Dave was the last person to see her alive. He had kissed her goodbye in the morning before she left for work, but she never arrived there. Since then, no one had been able to reach her. Dave told the investigators he had no idea what had happened to Carrie and shared their last messages. He explained that she had communicated with him in a very rude manner that day. Upset by her tone, he ended their conversation. This later troubled him as he wondered if it was truly Carrie, who was always polite, sending such messages. Detectives then spoke with Carrie's relatives, piecing together some incident from that day. On the morning of November 13, 2012, Dave had left home after kissing Carrie goodbye as she prepared for work. Later, Carrie's mother, Nancy, received a worrying message from her daughter, saying she had broken up with her boyfriend, Dave, and was in a mental hospital due to a nervous breakdown. This alarmed Nancy, who panicked when she couldn't find Carrie in any hospital. Meanwhile, Carrie failed to appear at work on an important day when she was supposed to present a new project, raising further concerns for her safety. Later, Carrie's employer received a message stating that she had accepted a new job in Kansas and would no longer be working for him. This news surprised the management because she takes her work very seriously. Additionally, Carrie's son, Max, also received a message from she, saying she was going to her brother's wedding. However, the wedding took place without her. These conflicting messages worried her family, colleagues, and friends because they didn't seem true. No one believed she would leave her son and relocate to another state just for work. It seemed that she was either hiding something or in trouble. Concerned, her relatives decided to file a police report about her disappearance. Dave was completely confused by what was happening and can't believe it. He allowed the police full access to inspect his car and mobile phone. He actively cooperated with the investigation and tried to help in the search for his beloved, Carrie. He told police that his relationship with her had only begun a few weeks ago, but they had become very close during that time. Carrie was always calm, but after her disappearance, he began receiving aggressive messages with insults and threats on social media. The police believed him because he voluntarily cooperated with them. He was clearly very upset about her disappearance and successfully passed the polygraph test. He had no reason to harm his beloved. The detectives informed Dave of something important regarding Carrie's. They revealed that Carrie had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Without medication, she might experience psychotic episodes, which could explain the unusual aggressive messages. Detectives explained that if Carrie ran out of medication while she was with him, she might lose control and have an episode. Once she was found, and her medication resumed, these issues would cease. This reassured Dave, and he promised to inform the police if she contacted him again. However, soon after, Dave regularly receives annoying messages, with threats and insults from anonymous social media accounts. These messages often targeted women connected to Dave. The number of such messages reached 60 per day, and the variety of accounts and platforms used to contact him kept increasing. Receiving threatening messages left Dave extremely scared. He reported these threats to the police. An ex-girlfriend of Dave's also told police that she had been sent similar threatening messages after the first date with him. She received threatening messages that if she continued to see Dave's, her child will be in danger. So she cut off contact with he. The situation worsened when Dave's friends began receiving messages accusing him of abusing women. These accusations spread widely, including on dating sites, causing him to receive a series of hostile messages from strangers. Dave had to defend himself, explaining that the accusations were false and lacked any evidence. Dave's life turned into a nightmare. People avoided and despised him. Meanwhile, Carrie, a woman he knew, had been missing for over 3 weeks, and the police were unable to trace her movements, phone, or bank card transactions. Everyone believes she is dead. But her relatives need to find her body and find out what happened to their daughter. Dave continues to be terrorized, so he is forced to contact the police again. However, they were actively investigating his girlfriend's disappearance, and they did not have the resources to investigate the threatening messages he received. In January 2013, Dave accidentally discovered Carrie's Ford Explorer in a parking lot near an apartment building. But it was empty. He immediately reported it to the police, who then inspected the car. The car had a scratch on one side, but there were no fingerprints on the vehicle's exterior or on the steering wheel, not even Carrie's, as if someone had intentionally erased them. However, a single fingerprint was found on a can of mints inside the car, but it didn't match any records in the national database and wasn't Carrie's. The car was very clean, except for a small pink stain on the passenger seat, resembling a spilled strawberry smoothie. After the inspection, the car was returned to Carrie's parents, who later sold it. Meanwhile, the threats against Dave become more and more terrifying. Dave kept receiving photos of the window with messages that the sender had a spare key and intended to break into the house and harm him. They also sent Dave's photos of his children with threats. Afterwards, they even threatened his neighbor. He even received a photo of a woman resembling his neighbor tied up in a car trunk. Frightened, he called his neighbor to ensure she was safe. She said that she was actually at home. During these times, Dave tried to dismiss the threats and hoped it would all end soon. This tense situation drew him closer to his neighbor, who was also targeted by the attacker. Dave and neighbor girl began to communicate with each other more regularly and share their experiences and worries. Often, while watching movies together, they would simultaneously receive threatening and insulting messages on their phones. After receiving several threatening photos, including some pictures of his children, Dave contacted the police again. However, the investigators seemed indifferent and did not take any action to resolve his problem. Frustrated, Dave submitted a report to a special unit in Omaha that handled such cases. Unfortunately, this department had only one specialist, who was overwhelmed with 94 cases and unable to assist him. Feeling desperate, Dave had no choice but to accept the situation and try to move on. He began to suspect that someone with mental health issues was behind the harassment, but he had no evidence to support this theory. Carrie's father had passed away, and her family grew increasingly worried when she missed the funeral. Instead, they received a text message with an apology from her, but no one had heard her voice for months. Carrie's family sensed that something was wrong and suspected that she was not the one sending these messages. In the spring of 2013, a man contacted Carrie's mother, Nancy. He tells Nancy that Carrie called and told him she was in a homeless shelter and wanted to be picked up. Nancy reported this to the police, and together they went to the shelter. Then they went there together, but they found out that Carrie wasn't there and she had never been there. Through the court, Nancy has been awarded custody of Carrie's son, Max, who had been living with them all along. Meanwhile, Dave and the neighbor's relationship becomes troubled. They constantly broke up and reconciled. She is increasingly annoyed and makes Dave uncomfortable. Ultimately, they ended their relationship in August 2013 because he doesn't want to build a serious relationship with she. Soon after, Dave's garage was vandalized. A few days later, Dave discovered that the house neighbor girl was renting had caught fire. The fire wasn't severe, so the rescue team was able to save the house, but the facilities need to be repaired. Tragically, a dog, a cat perished in the fire, prompting she and her 2 children to temporarily move in with relatives. She also informed the police that Carrie, who had threatened her, was the one responsible for burning down her house. Subsequently, Dave received a bizarre message, purportedly from Carrie, claiming she was pregnant. Knowing this was impossible, as he had undergone a vasectomy years earlier and was incapable of having children, this made him suspicious about whether Carrie was really the one who sent him the message. Moreover, Carrie had had a hysterectomy, making it impossible for her to be pregnant as well. 2 months later, a bright orange sign appeared at Dave's auto repair garage, accusing him of mistreating women. In January 2014, Dave's longtime girlfriend visited him at night. A few hours after they went to bed, someone threw a brick through the bathroom window. This incident caused Dave to become extremely stressed, and he realized that the situation had gotten out of control and become dangerous. Because the police did not take action, Dave decided to leave and move to a different house. He found a new job, changed his phone number and all his contact details, and bought a firearm for protection. As a result, he disappeared from public view for a long time and did not contact anyone. However, then, he registered on a dating site under a different name and arranged to meet a new girl. The girl never appeared at the date. Instead, he received a threatening message from Carrie. It turned out the girl also received a similar threat, which is why she didn't attend the date. Dave's neighbor girl also received an email expressing anger. It was from someone named Amy Flora, which was Dave's ex-wife's name. She suspects that Amy might be the one behind everything. Unable to reach Dave, so she contacted the police and reported the stalking. This theory seemed plausible, because Amy has every reason to hate Dave for the divorce. During this time, Dave's gun vanished, indicating a possible break-in at his house and he could be in danger. He reported this to the police. As the situation got out of control, the police finally decided to take a closer look at the stalking. Their main focus is investigating Carrie's disappearance. When they questioned Dave again, they knew that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. With new details, the investigator doubted that Carrie was threatening her boyfriend and others. They don't understand why Carrie, who has been dating Dave for about 2 weeks, would threaten him and everyone around him. She even left her entire family, their home, and their successful job for him. It didn't add up and shows that someone may have kidnapped her and stolen her identity. On December 5, 2015, Liz Gollier, an old girlfriend of Dave's, called 911. She reported that she was attacked while walking home late at night through the park. She saw a shadow in the darkness before being attacked from behind and asked if she liked Dave, followed by a gunshot. Liz identified her attacker as resembling Amy Flora, Dave's ex-wife. The attacker shot her in the leg but then disappeared into the night. Luckily, Liz's injury was minor, and she was taken to the hospital. The police visited Amy to verify details and determine whether she was responsible for the shooting. However, Amy denied any involvement. During the investigation, the police discovered that Amy had received numerous threats from an unknown woman. Amy said that she had recently started communicating more with her ex-husband, Dave. This led to her receiving a series of threatening messages. telling her to cut off contact with him. She allowed the police to search her house, but they found nothing suspicious, and she had an alibi at the time of the attack. Detectives verified her alibi and confirmed the threatening messages, leading them to remove she from the list of suspects. Despite this, Liz insisted that Amy was the attacker. At the same time, Liz could not explain how she could see the shooter's face clearly in the dark when she was in a state of fear, and no one believed her claim. To confirm her statement, Liz brought with her a printed message confessing to the attack, which Amy emailed to her. This confession contained very detailed information about Carrie's abduction. On the morning of November 13, 2012, Carrie logged onto her social media page at approximately 6:45 a.m. The next time Carrie logged in was 3 hours later, to unfriend Dave. According to Amy's confession, this was when she abducted Carrie. Email sender accurately described Carrie's tattoos, including one not listed on the missing persons flyer. Email claimed that Carrie had suffered wounds in the abdomen or chest area, was then burned beyond recognition, and disposed of in a trash bin. It also included details about Carrie's car and house that hadn't been publicly shared, leading police to suspect that the letter's author had actually seen her body. They concluded that Carrie had been murdered over 3 years ago. But they believe that Amy did not do it, and they do not even believe that Amy herself would write a confession letter and sign it. It all looks like an unprofessional staging. The investigators were suspicious of Liz Gollier, who had provided an email from Amy, is the mastermind behind Carrie's kidnapping. A check of Liz's phone revealed that she had deleted some information. They found out that she was using an app to encrypt her location, making it hard to trace the origin of the messages. Nancy, Carrie's mother, got involved in the investigation. She believed that the messages sent to relatives by Carrie before she disappeared were written by someone else. This was because they contained grammatical mistakes and had an unusual writing style, unlike Carrie, who was always polite and articulate. Then, the police discovered that Liz had become obsessed and lost her sense of reality. She shot herself, all in an effort to terrorize Dave. It's hard to believe, but investigators keep trying to uncover the truth. Dave was shocked to learn about Liz's deception. For 3 years, she managed to conceal her actions, sending over 15,000 messages, dedicating 50 to 70 hours a week, like a full-time job. She used the timer to make sure she always had an alibi. Her actions stem from her possessive feelings towards Dave. She didn't want to share Dave with other women and was determined to win him back at any cost. Detectives began carefully questioning Liz after she was released from the hospital following a gunshot wound, with the hope that collecting information will help speed up the investigation process. Liz was interrogated, and she seemed very angry. She aggressively insisted that Amy should be jailed because posed a danger to society. Liz presented new letters purportedly showing more confessions about killing Carrie, revealing details such as Carrie being killed in her own car from the passenger seat. However, the detectives knew these claims were false and that Amy was not involved. They told Liz that Amy was now with Dave to observe her reaction. As expected, she became furious and lost control. The police continued telling Liz they needed evidence to charge Amy. They tried to link Amy to Carrie's disappearance, as Liz had accused Amy's. Liz began sharing more and more details about the crime. How did she know all this? The police located Carrie's car, which Carrie's parents had sold, and obtained permission from the new owners to inspect it. During the inspection, they removed the seat covers, revealing a large blood stain on the seat and smaller stains beneath it. DNA analysis confirmed the blood belonged to Carrie, who had disappeared 3 years earlier. They also discovered DNA traces belonging to Liz. This further increased suspicion towards her. Later, the investigation uncovered thousands of photos on Liz's computer. Most of these were selfies, but one photo showed a leg with signs of decomposition. The police identified the leg by tattoos matching those of Carrie. After a lengthy investigation, they discovered that the IP address used to send confession emails and threats supposedly from Carrie was linked to a person named Gareth. Liz's ex Gareth believed his beloved to be Shauna Gollier for many years. Little did he know that Liz was weaving conspiracies and a web of lies around the story of Carrie's disappearance. During the inspection of Gareth's house, the police found nothing of interest. However, a search of Liz's previous home uncovered new evidence. Officers discovered several mobile phones and electronic devices, including a camera owned by Carrie. It was confirmed that one of the phones was used to call Carrie's mother. This phone had a voice-changing app installed. Detectives also matched fingerprints found on a candy pack in Carrie's car to Liz's fingerprints, and they match. Liz's actions were incredibly cruel. She cruelly sent messages to Carrie's mother and son, giving them hope that Carrie was still alive. This deception went so far that Max, Carrie's son, wrote a message 3 years after his mother's disappearance to the number from which he last received a message from her. He wrote that if she was really his mother, she should come back because he wanted her to be with him at his graduation. Based on this evidence, Liz was arrested in December 2016. She was charged with first-degree murder, concealment of a body. Her defense team opted for a judge to decide her guilt, rather than a jury. The prosecution argued that she stabbed Carrie to death in November 2012 in Carrie's own car. They claimed Liz lay in wait for Carrie as she left Dave's house and attacked her when she reached her car. The prosecution presented all the evidence pointing to Liz's guilt. Another disturbing story about Liz's emerged during the trial. Liz once had a young son named Cody. Cody's father, who had a mental disability, cherished his son. When Cody was found unconscious, it was determined little boy died from shaken baby syndrome. Cody's father confessed to the crime and was imprisoned. However, his family believed Liz was the true perpetrator and had manipulated the father into confessing. Additionally, it was revealed that this was not Liz's only instance of harassment. After breaking up with another man, she stalked his new girlfriend, continued even after they married and had a child. On August 15, 2017, Liz Gollier was found guilty on all charges. She, however, did not admit guilt for any of them and showed no remorse. Her lawyer sought leniency, requesting a sentence of no more than 30 years with parole eligibility after 15. However, the prosecution argued that Liz lacked humanity and did not merit a reduced sentence. Consequently, she received life imprisonment without parole. Liz continues to deny her guilt and is appealing the verdict. Carrie's family never recovered her body, which remains missing. They long to find her remains to fulfill her wishes of cremation and scattering her ashes. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Christy Johnson. Christy Johnson was born in 1981 in Santa Clara, California, USA. She lives with her parents, Teresa and Kirk Johnson. When she was a child, her family moved from California to Saugatuck, a small town in Michigan. Saugatuck is a quiet town with less than 1,000 residents. It seems like a safe place to build a happy future, with an extremely low crime rate. The locals feel so safe that they don't even lock their doors. It's a tight-knit community where everyone knows each other. Christy has an older brother named Derek, who is just a few years older than her. Her parents later divorced, but they maintained a good relationship for the sake of their children. Christy and Derek took turns living with their father and mother as required by the custody agreement. As a result, Christy quickly took on household responsibilities. From the age of 12, she began helping her mother, including managing the family budget. Christy sought part-time work to gain independence and avoid having to ask her parents for money. Eventually, her brother Derek enlisted in the army and decided to pursue a career in the military. During this time, Christy was in high school. Christy is fun and interesting to talk to. She leads an active and healthy lifestyle. Christy enjoys sailing, surfing, and anything water-related. She also enjoys theater and is a member of a small acting club. In the winter, she works as a waitress at a local cafe. Her pleasant, polite, and sociable attitude attracts many customers. Christy grew increasingly eager to leave the small town of Saugatuck, as the peaceful environment there did not suit her. In 1999, she graduated from high school, finally having the freedom to begin forging her own path to success. After some reflection, Christy decided to begin her journey of exploring different cities, exploring different jobs. Initially, she moved in with her grandmother in the small resort town of Santa Maria. Population 100,000. Finding a job to support herself was important. She then worked as a systems administrator for an electric utility company and continued her education. Christy decided to enroll in the University of California, a 40-minute drive from her grandmother's home. Although she used her savings to buy a car, the daily commute proved difficult, so Christy looked for work closer to her studies. Christy got a part-time job with a film crew. Her experience working in a theater group helped her adjust to her new work environment. She was hired as an assistant on the set of a horror film, where she met people from Hollywood. She interacted with world-famous actors and directors and felt extremely happy. Christy was fascinated by the world of cinema. Inspired by this experience, she wanted to get more involved in the industry, so she enrolled in professional makeup courses taught by Hollywood makeup artists. After mastering these skills, she considered becoming a makeup artist on set and planned to move to Los Angeles. She eventually moved to Los Angeles, where many famous film studios were located. When she arrived in her new environment, she avoided parties and social gatherings. She had a boyfriend whom she met a few years ago. They kept in touch despite the distance, and later he moved in with her. They rented an apartment together in Los Angeles. Since 2002, they have been struggling financially. Although it was not easy, Christy persevered in finding a stable job. Christy still had not found a steady job, so most of her income came from her boyfriend. Then their relationship deteriorated. Christy confided in her mother that their arguments often ended with him physically abusing her. She felt trapped in a toxic relationship. Her mother began looking for a new place for Christy to live. Eventually, Christy left her boyfriend, moved into a small apartment, and continued her studies. Her father supported her financially, hoping that she would find her way. By November 2002, Christy had found a job at a cell phone company. Although the job did not match her career goals or salary expectations, her mother then found her a new home close to her workplace in Santa Monica, a town near Los Angeles, where Christy shared a living space with 2 other girls. During this time, she transferred to Santa Monica College. Christy's Hollywood dreams did not come true. Her relationship ended and she started over. Despite this, she remained determined and continued to pursue her dreams. On February 15, 2003, Christy was scheduled to attend a party. Before that, she went to a shopping mall and had a long phone conversation with her mother about her future plans. This turned out to be the last time the family heard from her. The next day, February 16th, Christy's mother tried to call her daughter. At first, she was not worried, thinking that Christy might be resting or working and unable to answer the phone. However, when she received no response, she became more worried. By 9 a.m. the next day, Christy's mother contacted her workplace, where Christy was known to be punctual and reliable. Christy's manager confirmed that she had not shown up for work. A coworker told her that Christy was supposed to be attending a party. Christy's mother searched her daughter's social media but found no useful information about the event. Although Christie shared many photos of her life, she had not posted anything about the party. The mother also reviewed Christie's bank account transactions and noticed that there had been no activity since Christie stopped communicating. Worried, she called all the hospitals, but Christie was not admitted to any of them. On February 17th, her mother reported Christie missing to the Santa Monica Police Department. Police investigated whether she had been involved in any traffic accidents but found no clues. Friends who lived with her reported that they had not heard anything unusual after she went missing. Police contacted her ex-boyfriend, Todd. They considered the possibility that he might have harmed her, but he denied seeing her. Neighbors said they saw Christie on Saturday, February 15th, on her way to a party, but they did not know who she was with or where the party was. The police had to get at least something connected with the Christie, so her car, a white oil Mint, was sought. While interviewing her mother, they learned more about her ex-boyfriend, Todd, and her new boyfriend, Lucas. However, Christie's mother had very little information about Lucas. She didn't even know his last name, which complicated the investigation. It had been 48 hours since Christie was reported missing, a critical time frame in which police feared she might not be alive. They began checking cell phone records and discovered that Christie's last outgoing call was made at 5:34 p.m. on February 15th. She had called the helpline at 411, which could indicate that she was in distress and seeking assistance with an address or phone number. The conversation lasted about 3 minutes, suggesting it was important to the investigation, but specific details could not be obtained because the calls were not recorded. After that call, Christie's phone battery died, with her last known location being near Ventura Boulevard. Police reached out to the media to assist in the investigation. News outlets quickly began to cover Christie's disappearance. Police searched Christie's apartment for clues and discovered a receipt from a lingerie store dated February 15th, the day she went missing. They also learned that Christie had been in contact with Todd, her ex, despite his violent tendencies. She last visited him on February 7th. Police discovered a key clue while reviewing Christie's emails. On February 13th, Christie sent a message to the event manager expressing her intention to purchase tickets. However, she was told that all the tickets were sold out and was placed on a special waiting list. This tactic is often used by event organizers to deceive customers and then sell tickets at a higher price. The police then found Christie's new boyfriend, Lucas, and interviewed him. He reported that he last saw Christie on February 14th, the day she went missing. They spent the evening watching a movie before saying goodbye. He passed a polygraph test, had a solid alibi, and did not raise any suspicions with the police. Next, police spoke with Christie's ex-boyfriend, Todd, who also had an alibi. He was confirmed by multiple witnesses to be out of town. Police focused in particular on the party Christie attended when she went missing. Police contacted the organizers of the event and were surprised to learn that Christie had never purchased a ticket and did not attend the party. This raised questions about where she might have gone instead. To reconstruct the timeline of that evening, police reviewed transactions made with Christie's bank card. This investigation revealed the stores she had visited that day. Police then searched for surveillance camera footage that might provide details or clues about her activities. The police then received a call from a woman named Susan Murphy, who reported seeing a suspicious person. She recounted her encounter with a man named Victor Lawrence Paleologos at a store, where Victor said he was a representative of a film company that was casting for a new James Bond film. Susan said he asked her to audition for the role of Bond's girlfriend, complimented her appearance, and tried to convince her to join. Feeling uncomfortable with him, she eventually turned down his offer. To ensure her safety, her husband, a former police officer, went to see Victor. He spoke to Victor to try to learn more about his intentions, but Victor fled without providing any useful information. Susan later investigated Victor further and discovered that he had lied, that he had absolutely nothing to do with the film. Victor likely fabricated this information to meet beautiful women, although his motives remain unclear. Although Susan is safe, Victor is still at large and could pose a danger, making it important to verify this information and locate him. They then decide to interview employees in the store. Police described Victor, who had a reputation for harassing attractive women, in these conversations. At one store, a clerk reported seeing a person matching the police description but was unable to provide any useful details. The search for Christie intensified. Police deployed dogs and volunteers to the area where she was last seen. Volunteers searched for Christie and her car. Although police had received multiple reports of sightings of a similar vehicle, those reports turned out to be false. On February 24th, police received a crucial tip. They located her car, a white Mazda Miata, in a parking lot near the shopping center where Christie had been shopping. A forensic scientist then arrived to conduct a thorough examination of the car, collecting fingerprints and other evidence found inside. A water bottle was found in the back seat, and Christie's cell phone was found in the front seat. The police encountered an unexpected revelation when they spoke with the parking attendant. He recalled an incident involving the car in question. The vehicle arrived at 17:45, but it was already reserved for another customer. A man exited the car, and when informed of the reservation, he reacted aggressively. He threw the car keys at the attendant and left without further explanation. Sadly, there were no surveillance cameras in the parking area, making it impossible to identify the driver. With no leads, the police returned to examining the Christie's purchases from that day and were taken aback. On the day she disappeared, Christie had bought a set of clothes that matched the description Susan had given when Victor asked her to prepare for the casting. He instructed Susan to buy the shortest black miniskirt possible, along with a white shirt, stockings, and shoes. All these items were purchased using Christie's bank card, leading the police to suspect that this was not merely a coincidence. This suggests that Christie may have fallen for a scammer, similar to what happened to Susan, although fortunately she was with her husband. Unfortunately, there was no news of Victor, and the police had no way to contact him. Police once again spoke to Christie's housemates. They recalled that Christie had indeed attended and tried out the role, although they could not recall the specifics. During the discussion, they noted that it was related to James Bond. They mentioned that Christie was very excited about the event, and she had gone to get ready in costume. Christie was worried about being late for the tryout the role, which was scheduled for 5:30 p.m. Police reviewed the camera footage several times to locate Victor, and unfortunately, the footage was of poor quality and they were unable to identify his facial features. However, with the help of witness statements, police were able to create a composite sketch of the prime suspect in Christie's disappearance. By February 26th, the sketch was complete. An experienced police officer familiar with the case identified the suspect as Victor Lawrence Paleologus, who had just been paroled on January 20, 2003, after serving a sentence for sexual assault. Victor often used tactics like promising casting calls for parties to lure his victims. This approach worked for him, especially near the Walk of Fame, where many young women who come to Los Angeles to dream of Hollywood make them easy targets for predators. Victor first received the suspended sentence for attacking a girl. In 1998, he attempted to rape Katie Devena, presenting himself as Brian, a film producer. He received a very short sentence for this crime. There are also indications that Victor had embezzled money from a company before. In addition, several other women came forward as victims of his attempted rapes, but the police reports did not result in any consequences for him due to lack of evidence. He once attacked his ex-girlfriend in her own home. Although this was also an unsuccessful sexual assault, he stole money and jewelry from her apartment. This crime was largely overlooked, resulting in only a suspended sentence. He then seduced a girl named Heather, as he had done with others, and convinced her to dress in a way that pleased him. He then attempted to tie her up and rape her, but she escaped. Victor was sentenced to 2 years in prison and was paroled on January 20, 2003, just 3 weeks before Christie went missing. After his release, Victor quickly returned to his previous criminal activities. By the time police began searching for him, he had been arrested for stealing a BMW X5 in Beverly Hills and attempting to sell it using false documents. During a search of his wallet after his arrest, officers discovered a wallet containing several stolen IDs, credit cards, and other documents. The police showed Susan a photo of Victor. At the police station, Susan quickly recognized Victor in a lineup, despite his attempts to disguise himself by hunching over, changing the shape of his arms, and changing his hairstyle. Susan's husband, who had tried to stop the attacker, also confirmed Victor's identity. However, a security guard at the parking lot where Christie's car was found could not recognize Victor, as he had only seen him briefly in the darkness. Victor denied any involvement in Christie's disappearance and insisted on having a lawyer present before speaking to the police. Victor expressed concern that the authorities might be trying to frame him because he was on parole. Police kept collecting evidence against Victor, and a new witness soon came forward. A realtor had been working with Victor for several weeks and noticed his unusual behavior while looking for homes priced up to $700,000. They visited multiple properties each day, and during one visit, they experienced an incident involving lost documents and keys that suggested Victor might be involved in theft. After the realtor saw Victor's photo in a police report, they recognized him as a possible suspect. The realtor recalled Victor behaving nervously during their last meeting, which happened around the time Christie disappeared. Additionally, while viewing a house, Victor tested the soundproofing by shouting from the bathroom, raising police suspicions that he was scouting for a potential crime scene. The police investigated all the homes Victor had visited, paying special attention to one where Christie's phone last registered a signal. They searched for evidence or Christie's body but found nothing. However, when they searched Victor's apartment, they discovered unsettling photos of women in revealing clothing. After 12 days of investigation, Christie's family remained hopeful for her safe return, while Victor was uncooperative, denying any involvement but acknowledging that he had seen Christie before she disappeared. Victor was born in 1962 in Pennsylvania as the youngest of 5 brothers in a family. He attended college, earned a bachelor's degree, and then moved to Los Angeles for graduate studies. He was married from 1990 to 1993, during which time there were allegations that he attempted to poison his wife after she reported his business failures. Feeling aggrieved by the world, Victor turned to crime, and his obsession with attractive women led him to violence. On the night Christie went missing, Victor and his lawyer provided an alibi backed by witnesses, stating he was at a restaurant with a friend. Nevertheless, police believed he might have had enough time to abduct another victim despite his alibi. On March 1st, a new witness contacted the police, saying that he had seen Christie on February 15th. She was near his house, asking for directions to a mansion that looked like a castle. His wife overheard the conversation and gave Christie directions to the location. Christie later called the information desk, confirming that she was indeed looking for a house that looked like a castle, which also fit the type of house Victor was considering because of its soundproofing. While the police were following up on this lead, something else important happened. On March 3, 2003, 4 teenagers hiking in the Hollywood Hills discovered something unusual about 100 meters below them. At first, they thought it was a mannequin, but upon closer inspection, they realized it was a human body. Without cell phones, they rushed to report their discovery to a woman walking her dog on the road. The woman then went to where the teenagers pointed. She saw the victim's legs were tied and covered with a blue cloth. The woman was wearing a gray hoodie, her hands were tied behind her back, and there was a hair tie around her right wrist. She immediately called the police. Rescue workers and police quickly arrived at the scene and, after much effort, were able to remove the body from the Hollywood Hills. The medical examiner identified the body as that of Christy Johnson. Police notified Christy's parents of the tragic news, and they were devastated by the loss. Christy's body had extensive bruising and abrasions. The condition of the body was poor due to significant decomposition from exposure to heat for several days, along with a rainy day. Her face was particularly unrecognizable due to the severity of her injuries. Christy's ear was torn, and there were significant bruises on her head and neck. These injuries were consistent with blunt force trauma and strangulation, which were determined to be the cause of death. Police believed that Victor was responsible for the murder, but they needed to prove that he did not have an alibi for the time of Christy's murder. To do this, police spoke to his friend Joy, who mentioned having dinner with him that night. Upon questioning, Joy stated that they met much later than the time of Christy's death. Joy stated that Victor arrived late for their meeting, around midnight, even though they had planned to meet earlier. Victor had scratches on his face, which he attributed to minor injuries sustained while moving. The police have pieced together the events leading up to Christy's disappearance. The man, who frequently targeted victims at a shopping center, approached Christy, a young girl he found attractive. He claimed to be working in the film industry and invited her to audition for the role of James Bond's love interest. Presenting himself convincingly. Flattering Christy, he insisted she was perfect for the part, playing on her ambitions and making it hard for her to refuse. He arranged to meet her at a property he was visiting with a realtor, claiming it was for the audition. Christy prepared for the meeting and wore the outfit he requested. When they met, she became the target of his attack. She tried to scratch his face to fight back. Victor overpowered her, raped her, and killed her to prevent her from reporting the crime. He first struck her on the head and then strangled her, believing she was dead before leaving her body in the Hollywood Hills. Tragically, the blunt force trauma and strangulation didn't lead to her death immediately. She lost consciousness, and he assumed she was dead. When he discarded her onto the rocks from a significant height, she sustained even more injuries. Finally, she regained consciousness and died slowly. On May 12, 2003, the district attorney charged Victor with kidnapping, rape, and first-degree murder. The defense was well prepared to fight for his freedom, as there was no direct evidence linking him to the crime. The prosecution faced a challenging task, relying on compelling arguments from forensic experts. The defense challenged the estimated time of death, citing the presence of insects on the body. However, the similarities between this case and previous attacks attributed to the same criminal. Preparations for the trial took time, and Victor finally appeared in court in July 2006. The defense argued that the prosecutor's office had little to no direct evidence linking Victor to the victim, as there was no DNA, fingerprints, or surveillance camera footage. This lack of evidence was attributed to the fact that the body was discovered 2 weeks after the disappearance, by which time it had decomposed significantly, destroying any potential evidence. However, the prosecution gained the advantage of testifying about who had accused Victor of harassment. They portrayed him as a skilled manipulator. It was clear to everyone that the victor was responsible for Christy's death. To avoid the death penalty, he decided to negotiate with the prosecution and plead guilty to a lesser charge. The only remaining step was for Christy's family to accept this deal. By that point, the trial had been ongoing for 3 weeks with little progress, and its outcome was uncertain. After enduring so much pain, the victim's family was willing to compromise to ensure justice was served. However, on the day the verdict was announced, the victor submitted an 11-page request to the judge, asking to withdraw his guilty plea. Fortunately, it was too late for him to change his mind. Victor Lawrence Paleologus was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another horrible case. The case of Honey and Barry Sherman. The murder of Honey and Barry Sherman is one of the most baffling crimes in history. On a cold December morning, Canadian billionaire businessman Barry and his wife Honey were found dead in their mansion, hanging from a railing near their indoor pool. The shocking discovery led to an investigation that revealed unexpected twists and turns. Barry Sherman was born in 1942 in Toronto, Canada. His father ran a small business but passed away from heart failure when Barry was just 10 years old. From a young age, Barry demonstrated exceptional intelligence, setting him apart from his peers. In the early 1960s, he studied engineering at the University of Toronto. During the summer, he worked part-time as a truck driver, delivering drugs for the pharmaceutical company Empire, which was owned by his uncle, Louis Winter. Barry later earned his PhD and BA in astrophysics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1967. In his unfinished autobiography, Barry said that these early years were crucial in shaping his future. His uncle, Louis Winter, a pharmaceutical company owner, and his wife Beverly both died young, just 17 days apart, in 1965. Louis suffered from psychosis, while Beverly battled leukemia, leaving behind 4 young sons. Initially, Barry occasionally visited his young cousins, but eventually lost contact with them. At that time, Barry was only 22 years old, but he confidently declared to the real estate manager at the time that he wanted to become the head of the Empire Pharmaceutical Company. He offered $3,000 and a car. Barry demanded a response within 24 hours or he would withdraw his offer. The trustee rejected his bold proposal, but Barry was not deterred. 2 years after graduation, he made another attempt to gain control of the company, this time proposing a partnership with a formal offer of $450,000. The trustee considered selling the company, but wanted to ensure that Louis's 4 sons would be protected in the deal. However, Barry was only willing to put together a written agreement that would allow his cousins to work at Empire when they turned 21 and purchase up to a 5% stake when they turned 23, as long as he still owned the business. If he sold the company, the agreement would be void. Despite their concerns, the deal went ahead, but protections for Louis's sons were not included in the final agreement. Barry ultimately sold the company for nearly $2 million, and after gaining experience from this venture, Barry was ready to start his next venture, starting his own pharmaceutical company, Texas. He founded the company in 1974 as a conglomerate that would compete with global market leaders such as Pfizer and Bayer. The company produced generic drugs, which are essentially replicas of well-known medications. Barry portrayed himself as a champion for consumers, boldly suing major pharmaceutical companies to make medications affordable for patients in need. Barry married Honey in 1971. They met in 1970 when Honey was volunteering at a local hospital, raising funds for charities and participating in Toronto's Jewish community. Helping others was very important to her since she was born in an Austrian displaced persons camp, and her parents survived the Holocaust. Years later, Barry decided to help his cousins, Louis's children, after discovering that they had struggled with drug problems as teenagers. After 16 years of separation, Barry reconnected with them, providing them with a car, a house, and financial support. However, Barry's wife, Honey, was not happy with this new relationship. She frequently questioned Barry about what his cousins asked for and how much money he gave them. This frustration caused her to scold Kerry Winter, causing him to leave. Why was Barry so generous to his cousins? Kerry started to wonder if there was a hidden motive behind Barry's help. One day, Kerry confronted Barry and directly asked how he acquired their father's business. Barry dodged the question, but Kerry persisted. He began searching through family archives and discovered an agreement that shocked him, making him believe that Barry had deceived their family. Barry had never mentioned it to him or to the other brothers. Carey later called Barry to express his concerns, and Barry confirmed the truth of Carey's findings. This revelation caused a lasting rift between them and Barry. Barry was actively involved in charity work alongside his wife, Honey. They donated over $50 million, including significant contributions to the Jewish community and the Toronto Hospital, as well as supplies to areas affected by disasters. His company employed around 11,000 people and operated in over 100 countries worldwide. The couple had 4 adult children and several grandchildren. In 2017, they decided to sell their mansion, which was over 1,100 square meters, for nearly $7 million Canadian dollars. They intended to build their dream home closer to downtown Toronto, but those plans never materialized. At 8:30 a.m. on December 15, 2017, a cleaning crew entered the couple's home and began cleaning the house before it was put on sale. Around 10 a.m., 2 real estate agents arrived at the house with potential buyers to inspect the property. They first inspected the main levels of the house and then went to the basement, where the swimming pool was located. A real estate agent entered the pool area first and saw the bodies of Barry, 75, and Honey, 70. After realizing they were dead, she quickly ordered the buyers to leave, telling them that the owner was supposed to be doing yoga. Before taking the potential clients upstairs to view the home, the employee asked the maid to check the basement and see what was going on. The maid went down into the basement, approached the couple, and found them cold. She returned a few minutes later and informed the employee of her findings. The employee then said goodbye to the clients and went downstairs to confirm that Barry and Honey were indeed dead before calling the police. When police paramedics arrived, they confirmed that the couple were dead. Barry and Honey had been dead for approximately 36 hours at the time of discovery. Barry was discovered sitting on the right side with his legs crossed and his glasses correctly positioned on his face. He had some neck wounds, but no other injuries were found on his body. Honey had a bruise on her face, and Barry was located near the garage door. On the other side of the garage, there was vodka, which they often kept there, and one of the room's windows was opened about 15 centimeters for ventilation because the room had recently been painted. Both Barry and Honey had leather straps tightly wrapped around their necks, which were attached to stainless steel pool railings installed about a meter above the floor. The cause of death for both was determined to be strangulation. Initially, the police suspected that the couple had chosen to end their lives, but there seemed to be no reason for such a tragic decision. They were wealthy, had a thriving business, and were in love. A family member mentioned that Barry had complained of fatigue, blaming it on long hours of work and poor nutrition. However, Barry had never shown any signs of depression, making it difficult to believe that he would take such drastic action. Honey had recently been treated for throat cancer and was battling severe arthritis, having had knee and hip replacements. Despite her health problems, she never complained, was sociable and friendly, always maintained a positive attitude, and showed no signs of end-her-own-life tendencies. After a detailed examination of the crime scene, the police began to investigate the possibility that the husband killed Honey before taking his own life. They identified the victim as Honey based on injuries to her face. Both victims had marks on their wrists indicating their hands had been bound together. Autopsies found no traces of illegal substances or alcohol that could have contributed to their deaths. In Barry's basement, there is a sculpture made entirely from trash. The artist deliberately used discarded materials to create this piece, which depicts 2 human figures. After the bodies were discovered, some speculated that the killer may have been inspired by this sculpture, as the bodies were placed in similar positions. The day after the bodies were found, some unnamed police officers told the media that Barry had strangled his wife, Honey, before taking end your life. This was never verified and was quickly dismissed by family members, who said it was untrue, especially given the close relationship between the couple. Within 72 hours of the incident, their 4 adult children hired prominent criminal defense attorney Brian Greenspan. He assembled a team to conduct an independent investigation, including detectives and an expert who performed a second autopsy on the victims. They believe that Barry and Honey were murdered. The couple had died just a few days before they were scheduled to leave for a vacation at their home in Palm Beach, Florida. Honey had organized a 4-week trip that was meant to begin on December 18th. Barry was meant to join Honey a week later on the 25th. Unlike Honey, he wasn't in a rush. Work took priority over a vacation in Florida. When examining the couple's position when they died, they were sitting on the floor, their backs to the pool, their jackets thrown back. The glasses on the bar appeared to have been adjusted by someone, raising questions, as did the Barry's crossed legs. It appeared that someone had assisted them in their final moments. Barry's family released a statement calling on the police to conduct a thorough and impartial investigation into the deaths and asking the media to stop speculating about the cause. During this time, a serial killer was also active in Toronto, diverting police resources to catch him. As a result, the investigation into Barry and Honey's case was not a priority. The couple's autopsies were performed by a rookie forensic expert who had never worked on such a complex case before and was unable to provide any conclusive answers. However, after Bruce McArthur was arrested, police began working on Barry's case and interviewed around 240 people. With such a large group, it seemed like the case would be solved quickly. Unfortunately, that was not to be. The latest known events before the couple's death were remarkable. On December 12, 2017, Honey was absent from a charity board meeting, which was unusual for her as she had never been absent from such meetings before. The following day, December 13th, Barry and Honey met at Apotex's headquarters to discuss plans for their new home. Barry often made work calls at night because he had trouble sleeping, which changed his working hours. However, on the evening of December 13th, he did not make a phone call, which was unusual for him. Barry was scheduled to appear at the Apotex office on December 14th, but he did not show up or notify anyone of his absence, which is highly unusual. Toronto police, who have been criticized by Barry's family for their previous handling of the case, have refused to make any public statements. Police have not been looking for a suspect because there was no evidence of a forced entry into the home or any signs of outsiders, prompting theories that people close to them were involved. An independent investigation revealed that Barry's cousins were suspects. They were unhappy that Barry had lied to them and left them without money. For 10 years, they had been involved in a lawsuit over a portion of Barry's pharmaceutical fortune. They argued that Barry had founded his pharmaceutical company at the expense of his father's company, Empire, and they demanded their share of Apotex. Barry denied all allegations and fought tooth and nail, insisting that his cousins return the millions of dollars he had given them. Finally, in the 1980s, Barry did everything he could to support them. On September 15, 2017, 3 months earlier, Barry and Honey were found dead, and an Ontario judge ruled in Barry's favor, dismissing the cousins' claims and describing their lawsuit as unrealistic and overly ambitious. On December 6, just a week before Barry was last seen alive, a judge ordered Barry's cousins to pay $300,000 in attorney fees. Barry was unhappy with the amount, as he was asking for nearly $1 million. After the ruling, Barry brought in his attorneys to appeal the decision. They filed their appeal the day after his funeral. Due to the ongoing conflict with the cousins, many began to suspect their involvement in the couple's murder. One of the cousins, Kerry Winter, even mentioned in an interview that he had fantasized about ambushing Barry at work and harming him. Kerry was not surprised by the tragedy that occurred. He believed that Barry had killed his wife, Honey, and then taken his own life. In several interviews, Carey mentioned that years ago, Barry approached him with a disturbing request. Barry is said to have told Carey that he wanted Carey to do him a favor and kill his wife. Carey responded in disbelief, "Are you serious, Barry?" Barry said, yes, he hated her. Carey insisted that he would not commit such an act but mentioned that he might know people who could. However, when Carey was about to help Barry out of gratitude for his past support, Barry suddenly changed his mind and rejected the idea. Barry's family later strongly denied Carey's claims, asserting that Barry would never ask his cousin to do something so extreme, as he loved Honey very much and would never think of harming her. Carey claimed that he had nothing to do with the murder. He admitted that he felt great contempt and hatred for Barry because Barry hurt him and disrespected his father. Carey had every reason to dislike Barry, but he had nothing to do with Barry's death. Carey mentioned that on the day of the murder, he had been at work all day. In the evening, he attended a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, then returned home as usual, watched a movie, ate, and went to bed. The next morning, he went to work as usual. However, since he lived alone, no one could verify his statement. 3 years later, in November 2020, police announced that they had a suspect, but just 2 days later, they announced that there may be multiple suspects. There has been no further clarification since. A year later, in December 2021, police released surveillance footage near Barry's home. The videos showed a person wearing dark clothing walking on the sidewalk near Barry and Honey's home. Police observed that the person had an unusual gait, possibly due to walking in the snow. The time of the murder coincided with the time this stranger was seen walking toward the couple's home. The man in the footage was never identified because his face and identifying features were not visible. The only detail identified from the surveillance camera footage was his height, estimated to be around 170 to 180 centimeters. Police hoped that by sharing the video with the public, someone might recognize the man, but no one came forward to help police identify the suspect. According to police, Honey arrived home in her Lexus at around 8:30 p.m. on December 13th. She parked as usual and entered the kitchen through the laundry room door. The intruders may have entered the home. Honey then went into the bathroom, where she was either attacked or fled after the attack began. This would explain why her phone was found in the bathroom by a maid. Honey was beaten and strangled on the first floor before her body was moved to the basement. An independent medical examiner determined that Honey's facial injuries occurred as a result of being dragged down the stairs to the pool, but it was never determined which of the 2 staircases in the home was used. One theory is that the attacker encountered Honey and attacked her on the street, then used her keys to get into the house. This would explain why there were no signs of entry. Another possibility is that he entered through an open window or unlocked door. Barry left Apotex around 8:30 p.m. in his Mustang. After reaching home, he parked in the garage, which provided him access to the house through 2 doors. It's likely he used the door near the stairs, where he was attacked. This could clarify why his documents and gloves were discovered in the garage area. The killers placed the victims' bodies near the basement pool. They wrapped belts around their necks, draped jackets over their shoulders, and left glasses on the bar to make it look like to end one's own life. It was discovered that the leather belts used were taken from the victims' homes. This suggests that the criminals intended to fool the investigation into the fact that no outsiders were involved. And Barry was behind the setup. It was learned through investigation that Barry, despite keeping a tight rein on his wife's spending, but had generously given millions of dollars to his children. Although he was reluctant to spend money on himself or his wife, he was more than willing to financially support his children. Honey had the means to travel and shop. She could easily spend large amounts on home repairs and other essentials. However, she and her husband preferred not to spend much money. Before her death, Honey mentioned to relatives that her husband wanted to buy her an expensive gift, but she didn't know what it would be. Despite Barry's considerable wealth, he preferred to drive everyday cars. He owned a Mustang, and the couple never owned the luxury cars typically flaunted by billionaires. For his 50th birthday, Honey bought Barry a sports car and presented it to him in front of close family, but he was unhappy with the gift and insisted that she return it because he disliked extravagance. The Barry did not flaunt their wealth. Their home was modest for billionaires, and they were careful with their spending. They led a relatively simple lifestyle, often flying economy class. Honey enjoyed a few luxuries typical of the upper middle class, like beautiful jewelry, a Lexus SUV, and shopping trips in New York. In November 2016, she bought a valuable piece of land in the upscale Forest Hill neighborhood, which was registered in her name. They planned to demolish the existing house and a new one. The plans included a large brick and stone residence with an elevator and the outdoor pool that Barry promised her, complete with a retractable skylight and a separate pool. The building plans received approval on June 28, just under 6 months before the murder. Barry did not really want to move to a new home. He was happy with their current home but made the decision based on Honey's wishes. On November 27, 2017, just 2 weeks before the tragedy, their home was put up for sale and described as a modern architectural masterpiece. It is unclear why the Barry family chose to sell their home when construction on the new home had not even begun. In the final weeks of Honey's life, she was busy with her charity work while also overseeing the home project. In late November, she received the Senate Medal for 150th Anniversary Volunteer Service Award, presented by her close friend, Senator From. She was recognized as the best charity worker and fundraiser in Toronto. Barry supported Honey throughout their 46 years of marriage. The couple demonstrated a striking contrast. Honey was outgoing, cheerful, and social, while Barry preferred a more reserved and introverted approach, often uninterested in small talk. Although Honey did not have a formal job, she served as an exceptional ambassador for Apotex. Honey excelled at building connections with influential people through her charm and determination to assist others. In her final days, friends and family noted that Barry and Honey appeared happy and in good spirits, showing no signs of being threatened or in danger. Barry frequently filed lawsuits against competitors and the government. Over the course of his career, he initiated approximately 1,200 lawsuits, including 83 against Health Canada, using these actions as leverage. His substantial donations to various foundations helped him gain support from politicians. Barry was known as the most active defendant in Canada. Those close to him said that his love of litigation stemmed not from a desire for money, but from a need for validation and a determination to win at all costs. Another theory that may have something to do with the couple's deaths is Barry's questionable business practices. He was known to be mysterious and owed around $1 billion to various companies, which he never intended to repay. His investments outside of Apotex were large and obscure, including a failed casino venture, a money-losing gold mine, a bankrupt jewelry business, and an investment in a non-existent yacht. He also financed B-movies featuring gangsters and vampires and worked with people who were later convicted of fraud. Barry amassed a large fortune through unethical means. While some considered him generous and kind, many others criticized his character, claiming that he lacked positive qualities. Given his character, many people would have wanted to harm him. There were suspicions about his business partners at Apotex who may have had motives related to a business dispute, but no solid evidence has been presented. In the final months of his life, Barry suffered a setback. In January 2017, Apotex sued a former employee, accusing him of stealing drug formulas to start his own pharmaceutical company in Pakistan. A few months later, a key executive at Apotex was accused of espionage by its biggest competitor, an Israeli company, implying that a former female employee had leaked confidential information to her boyfriend at Apotex. In the weeks leading up to his death, Barry continued to work hard, always focused on his business. Barry suffered from insomnia and was constantly busy with calculations and planning. He even wanted to discuss business matters while on vacation. Barry was a man who trusted his instincts and was willing to take risks. He was a popular figure in society, and many people came to him for financial help. Police now believe that Barry's murders may have been related to his personality and lifestyle. He often made life difficult for others and was quick to sue anyone. The police suspect that the killer was likely an unknown person who either visited Barry's home or hired a hitman. Honey was not the intended target. She became an accidental victim because she encountered the criminal at the murder scene. After the murder, the unknown criminal remained in the house with the bodies for an extended period, indicating he was familiar with the family's daily routine and had ample time to carry out his actions without being disturbed. He meticulously cleaned up any evidence of his presence and positioned the bodies to resemble the unusual garbage sculpture found in the house. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attended the funeral of the Sherman couple and posthumously awarded Barry one of the nation's highest civilian honors. Approximately 6,500 people attended the funeral. An independent investigation team, led by a lawyer and supported by the victims' families, offered a $35 million reward for information that could lead to the arrest of the perpetrator, but this effort was unsuccessful. The lawyers discovered that the police failed to thoroughly examine the crime scene. Notably, they found jewelry on the driveway near the house that did not belong to the victims. But the police overlooked it and may have missed other crucial evidence that could have been lost over time. Evidence may have been destroyed by real estate staff and buyers who inspected the house, as well as cleaning crews who were present at the time. The police received a total of 343 tips from the legal team, but none of them led to the identification of the criminal. The last tip came on July 2, 2019. For unknown reasons, the legal team did not provide any information for more than a year, possibly due to a lack of new leads. In February 2019, the murdered couple's home was returned to their family. The couple's children then filed a petition to demolish the house, saying it was heartbreaking to see the house in its current state and that no one would want to buy it. As a result, the house was demolished. After the house was demolished, the family aimed to clean up the area, fill in the pool, and put the land up for sale. It is unclear if it has been sold yet. Barry has faced numerous death threats, including from his competitors. Notably, Barry had no protection whatsoever. Every evening, he would enter the office and get into his car, making it easy for someone to attack him. To this day, the case remains unsolved, with only 2 investigators still working on it. They are looking at all potential suspects from the large list of defendants in related lawsuits and are also looking into the company's financial records and charity documents. However, some believe that influential figures in society are involved, which could mean the case will never be solved. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Jesse McFadden. At that time, Holly was 35 years old. She had 3 children from a previous relationship, 13 years old Tiffany, 17 years old Riley Allen, and 15 years old Michael Mayo. Each child had a different father. Holly was married to Joe, a prominent man, for 13 years. He was a wonderful father and stepfather to all the children. Even after their divorce, Joe continued to care for the children as if they were his own. He also wanted to adopt Riley and Michael, but he was never able to do so. Holly's new husband, Jesse McFadden, was not as good a father as Joe. At 39 years old, Jesse had a troubling past, including a criminal record. In 2003, he was charged with assaulting and raping a 15-year-old girl at knife point. He received a 20-year prison sentence, but got out 3 years early, in October 2020, after serving 17 years. Despite his history, Jesse was not placed on the sex offender list or the list of potentially dangerous criminals, which the authorities should have done. As a result, he kept his past from Holly and portrayed himself as a model stepfather. He attended her children's sports games and engaging with the family. His past remained hidden, and he was seen as a good person. He gives the impression of being a kind man and regularly attended the local church. Holly had no idea that she was getting involved with a very dangerous man. Jesse was about to go crazy and commit a heinous crime. In 1916, while serving time in prison, he had his mobile phone confiscated. On the phone, authorities found photos, videos, and text messages involving a 16-year-old girl named Caitlin. Her grandfather accidentally discovered this sensitive content and reported it to the police, thereby leading to an investigation in the prison. At that time, Jesse was considered a model prisoner, participating in almost all activities, which under state law, made him eligible for parole after serving 85% of his sentence. Despite meeting all the conditions for parole, Jesse lost this privilege due to the incident involving Caitlin. However, he eventually managed to resolve the situation and secure his parole. After being released from prison, Jesse followed the rule of reporting to the sheriff's office every 90 days. He did this so discreetly that Holly, the children, and neighbors were unaware of his situation. Holly, his wife, was unaware that he was forbidden from being in places with children, such as schools and sports matches. Meanwhile, Jesse was still under investigation and awaiting trial for explicit photos of Caitlin he had corresponded with while in prison. The trial was delayed until 2023 due to a series of unfortunate incidents. The prosecutor handling the case was suspended, and Jesse's lawyer passed away. On May 1, 2023, as the trial is about to begin, a terrible tragedy occurred the day before. On the morning of May 1, 2023, the parents of Ivy and Brittany became worried. Ivy and Brittany are Tiffany's friends. They were best friends and often spent time together, including sleeping together overnight. Everyone expected Ivy and Brittany to return home after a sleepover on April 29, but both did not return. Initially, their parents weren't concerned, as the girls frequently stayed overnight at each other's houses, and they assumed their daughters were spending another night with Tiffany. However, by the morning of May 1, they still cannot contact their children. Ivy and Brittany did not respond to their parents' calls or text messages and could not be located using the Life 360 app. Ivy and Brittany's parents also couldn't contact Tiffany and her family to confirm if their daughters were there. Because they were increasingly worried, they reported Ivy and Brittany missing to the police that same day. The police issued a missing persons alert for Ivy and Brittany and immediately began an investigation. Based on information from the girls' parents, they decided to check Jesse's house, where Ivy and Brittany were before they went missing. Upon arrival, the police officers knocked on the door but received no response. Looking through the windows, they saw something unusual inside, so they decided to enter the house. The scene inside the house horrified all the police. Inside, they found 7 mutilated bodies. Some people can only be identified through forensic examination. Among them was Jesse himself, his wife Holly, Riley, Michael, Tiffany, Brittany, and Ivy. All the victims were shot in the head with a 9mm pistol. Bodies were scattered throughout the house. The detectives determined that the murderer was a former criminal named Jesse McFadden. He attacked all the victims and then ended his life. The probable reason was that on May 1st, he was supposed to start a trial that had been postponed for a long time. It is presumed that he did it because he could no longer hide his dark criminal past. Perhaps his wife, Holly, discovered it, or he was worried that she would soon find out, so he killed his entire family to take his secret to the grave. After the officers reviewed Jesse's cell phone, they were able to clarify the motive. On April 30th, he contacted Caitlin, a girl he had been messaging from prison using a fake account under the name Holly. He accused her of not withdrawing the charges against him, which he claimed was destroying his well-established life. He explained that after being released 2 years ago, he had rebuilt his life. He found a high-paying marketing job, started a family. He tried to convince Caitlin to recant her testimony to stop the trial. He argued that he had a good family and promising future. He sent several angry messages, asserting that he would never return to prison, regardless of the cost. The police concluded that he was enraged because he couldn't control his accuser, Caitlin. Detectives contacted Crystal Strong, a 36-year-old woman who was Jesse's first victim. In 2002, when she was only 15, Jesse attacked her with a knife. She was shocked to hear that he might be released from prison, believing he should remain behind bars forever. Crystal learns that the man who brutally sexually assaulted her has been pardoned. Despite the decision being made, but she still asked Oklahoma authorities to prevent his release because she believed he was dangerous in nature. At that time, she feared for her safety. After the attack, she detailed her ordeal to the police. Jesse, then 19 and dating her friend, kidnapped her from her home while she was alone. He took her to a secluded house in his pickup truck, where he chained her to a bed and brutally raped her. Despite her pleas for him to stop and release her, but he threatened her with a knife and continued his assault. Fortunately, he didn't kill her. Jesse instructed Crystal to wash off the evidence and clean her clothes. She agreed but instead used the opportunity to escape through the back door. She was crying and ran about half a kilometer to a neighbor's house to call the police. Following this, she underwent an extensive rehabilitation process, which helped her return to a normal life. She relocated to Kansas, where she hid for years due to the trauma of the brutal attack. Although doctors initially believed she couldn't have children, thankfully, their predictions were wrong. Crystal now has 4 children, which she views as a miracle. Crystal is confused that the police released Jesse, a dangerous criminal, too soon, even though she warned that he could not be reformed. It is also confusing why he was freed early despite being intoxicated. She believes the legal system has failed them, especially when he murdered 6 people in a brutal and painful manner. The victims' families also expressed their anger over Jesse's early release. It's hard to imagine how this cruel person managed to pretend to be a loving husband, a respectable neighbor, and a caring stepfather. None of his close friends suspect his horrific past. Although he regularly interacted with various people since December 2020, they were all shocked when the truth emerged. Ivy and Brittany's parents remember that their daughter and Tiffany were very close and often visited each other's homes. Ivy and Brittany's parents were familiar with Jesse and Holly and communicated with them regularly. They did not suspect Jesse, although he occasionally appeared strange and withdrawn. He had the odd habit of controlling Holly's and the children's movements, but they did not think much of it. Ivy and Brittany, who frequently stayed overnight at their homes, never mentioned anything negative about Jesse or his behavior. Ivy and Brittany never showed signs of bruises or injuries that would suggest abuse. During the investigation, it was discovered that Holly learned about Jesse's criminal past shortly before the tragedy. Holly's ex-husband found out about Jesse's criminal record by checking the database. He informed Holly, but Jesse acted quickly to cover up his past. Jesse hired an actress to convince Holly that the sexual assault allegations against him were a misunderstanding. The actress admitted that after the breakup, she accused Jesse of violence out of anger. However, she retracted the accusation after realizing she was wrong. Holly, unfortunately, believed this lie. Inside the house, police discovered even more terrifying clues. They found that all of Jesse's victims had been subjected to severe torture. The house resembled a torture chamber, with several beds equipped with chains and locks to restrain people. In the kitchen, police found a chain with a lock and different torture devices. The shocking clues are not just that. Bottles of lubricant and other sexual items were strewn around the house. Illegal substances and their paraphernalia were found across all rooms, including candies laced with similar content. Police also discovered other strange-looking objects and various blood-stained items, such as clothes, rags, and bed linen. Altogether, these clues indicate that the crime was horrific, revealing that Jesse's victims endured brutal torture before being killed. Holly and her children were likely tortured for several days. On April 29th, when Ivy and Brittany did visit Tiffany, they fell into a trap. They were tortured. Then, as they struggled to escape, but Jesse captured and killed them. During a house search, several laptops and mobile phones belonging to Jesse were discovered. These devices contained photos and videos documenting his torture activities. There was so much shocking evidence that the police couldn't collect everything in one day. Additional evidence of the brutal torture was gathered a few days later. A second search was conducted, uncovering more hidden evidence in the house and revealing new details. Receipts were found for purchases of locks, chains, and other items, shows that Jesse had a plan to control the victims. In addition, 5 other cell phones were found, along with Jesse's notebook, which contained the names of his recent victims. Jesse noted that he wanted to start a new life and become a better person, but no matter how much he wanted to, he couldn't change the past. He also did not hesitate to impersonate Ivy. For example, Ivy's mother said the last message she received from her daughter was on Saturday, April 29th. They agreed that Ivy would come home on Sunday, April 30th. However, on the morning of April 30th, she received a text saying Ivy and her friends were going to another city and couldn't return that evening. Therefore, she didn't worry until the morning of May 1st. Although there were reasons for concern, she didn't notice them right away. The communication style of the message was unlike her daughter's. She thought it was because Ivy was in a hurry to get ready for the trip. Only now does she realize that her daughter was probably no longer alive at that point, and it was Jesse who was messaging her. The hardest thing for Holly's ex-husband, who is also the father of Riley, Michael, and Tiffany, is that he has been unable to provide any information to the police. Holly's ex-husband accused Jesse not only of the crimes he committed but also of his lies. He criminally tricked Holly by hiring an actress and hid his violent nature from friends, neighbors, and his new family for 2 years. The parents of Ivy and Brittany frequently visited their home, but no one suspected Jesse could be dangerous or doubted his identity. Detectives spoke with Jesse's former cellmate and were even more amazed at his deceptive skills. The cellmate, who spent almost every hour of the day with Jesse, only realized something was off after 6 months. Initially, Jesse seemed just like an eccentric and awkward individual. Nearly every conversation with him led to the topic of sex, revealing his obsession with it. At a medical facility, the cellmate saw Jesse stalking nurses. When he asked Jesse about his conviction, he got a vague response. Jesse mentioned a much lesser charge than what he had committed. The truth came out during an incident involving a contraband phone, which worsened the atmosphere in the cell. From then on, the cellmate was constantly tense, unable to sleep peacefully whenever Jesse was around. The tragic death of 6 people has caused strong public outrage. People were shocked by the incident. 6 innocent individuals were killed: Holly, her 3 children, and 2 teenage friends, Ivy and Brittany. The public accused state police of negligence, ignoring evidence, and failing to monitor dangerous criminals and manage parole for Jesse. Everyone was outraged, questioning why no one recognized how dangerous Jesse was. They believed that if his danger had been known, people would have avoided interacting with him, potentially preventing this tragedy. Even now, this case leaves more questions than answers. Holly's behavior is also unclear. The police are exploring all possibilities, including the idea that she not only knew about Jesse's past but also became an accomplice. Holly's mother firmly denies this theory, insisting that she was a loving, caring mother who could never harm her children. The police are still considering the possibility that Holly was an accomplice, but things spiraled out of control, leading Jesse to kill her and then end his life. However, these claims have yet to be confirmed or refuted. The investigation is ongoing. Jesse McFadden's family has been plagued by legal issues. His younger brother, Cody, has been involved in legal trouble since 2010. Cody was arrested for kidnapping a woman, locking her in a dog cage, assaulting her, and torturing her. Cody's case is still pending in court. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Samia Shahid. Chaudhry Muhammad Shahid and Mitiyaz Shahid left their small village of Pandori in the Jhelum district of Punjab, Pakistan, in the mid-1980s to escape poverty and seek a better life. They immigrated to the UK, and in November 1987, their first child, Samia, was born in Bradford, West Yorkshire. A few years later, they welcomed their second child, a daughter named Mada. Shahid started a car rental business, which eventually grew to specialize in luxury vehicles, including limousines. As the business prospered, he helped two of his brothers and their families relocate from Pakistan to the UK. The Shahid family was well known and successful in Bradford, recognized for their wealth and influence. Shahid's brothers started and grew their businesses successfully. By the early 2000s, one brother owned a seafood shop chain, while the other ran a flower delivery and floristry business. Sisters Samia and Mada were born and raised in England, growing up in an interference of European and Pakistani cultures. However, their family strictly adheres to the traditions and laws of their homeland Pakistan. This created a sharp contrast between the liberal English lifestyle and the rigid rules imposed by their family. For instance, the girls were not permitted to drive, and their father closely monitored all their activities and interactions. The eldest daughter, Samia, was Shahid's pride and is considered Daddy's favorite daughter. He pampered her, buying her expensive clothes, jewelry, and let her study at the most prestigious university. She took great care of her appearance, using high-end cosmetics, go to beauty salons, and spend a lot of money there. Although she worked part-time at a post office, her lifestyle was primarily funded by her father, who fulfilled all her wishes. Secretly, Samia would sometimes rent a car and drive herself, as she loved driving and felt confident behind the wheel. She couldn't understand why Pakistani traditions restricted women from driving. Independent and strong-willed, she valued her freedom, but still made an effort to follow her parents' wishes and avoid upsetting them. Samia had many friends from university in England and stayed in touch with them. She was known for being bright, kind, and cheerful. Despite leading a life full of love and abundance, and seemingly having everything she could want, but she lacked the freedom to make her own decisions. She always acts according to the opinions of her parents and elder members of the family. Above all, she feared disappointing her father, whom she deeply admired. Yet, the strict rules, fears, and prohibitions in her life meant she could never truly be honest with her family. In 2012, Samia's parents decided it was time for she to marry, start a family, and have children. They insisted she travel to Pakistan to enter into a marriage that followed their cultural traditions. They chose her cousin, Shakil, as their son-in-law, a man she barely knew. Marriages between relatives and arranged unions are common in their culture. Samia had always known her parents would eventually select a husband for her, presenting it as a decision she could not refuse. She had resigned herself to this inevitability, but her father's choice left her deeply shocked. Samia found Shakil repulsive and could not imagine marrying him. To make matters worse, he had recently been released from prison after serving time for killing someone in a land dispute. Although Samia had interacted with him occasionally during childhood and had seen him as a brother figure, the idea of him as her husband was unthinkable. Her parents, who were also cousins in an arranged marriage, had fallen in love and built a happy life together. They believed the same would happen for Samia and Shakil, assuming love would grow over time. Despite her strong aversion to the match, Samia felt she couldn't defy her father and understood how much this marriage meant to her family. Her mother and younger sister Mata later asserted that no one forced her into the marriage. They thought that with her stubborn personality, they could not force her either physically or emotionally. According to them, she married willingly and of her own choice. In early February 2012, the decision about her upcoming wedding was finalized during a family meeting. In the weeks that followed, her parents, along with her aunt and uncle, who were also her future in-laws, took her shopping. She was able to choose anything she wanted: costly outfits, jewelry, accessories, cosmetics, and more, and they covered all the expenses. Outwardly, she feigned excitement of wedding preparations, but inwardly, she felt trapped. She already knew this marriage would not bring her happiness, but would instead feel like a punishment. Her true feelings could only be shared with her friends, not her family. At home, she had to maintain the appearance of joy, actively in discussing the wedding details, and prepare herself for her relocation to Pakistan. On February 20, 2012, Samia boarded a plane. She texted a close friend, telling her that she was about to fly thousands of miles to make the biggest mistake of her life, but she had no other choice. Later, she sent more messages, admitting that the very sight of the groom made her feel sick and that being near him was unbearable. On February 27th, Samia and Shakil had a grand wedding at Pandori, attended by around 1,000 guests. The wedding lasted 4 days, and as a wedding gift, Samia's parents gave she and Shakil a luxurious 2-story house located. However, Samia quickly realized that this beautiful house would feel like a prison, where she would be forced to live with a man she did not love. After returning to the United Kingdom, married life brought Samia no happiness. She still despised her husband, Shakil, and knew she could never love him. 4 months later, in mid-June 2012, she went back to her hometown of Bradford to handle some matters and assist Shakil with his immigration paperwork to apply for British citizenship. She planned to apply for a spousal visa for Shakil, but she postponed it to enjoy the feeling of freedom and have some time away from a husband she did not love. When Samia began processing the documents, she discovered that their wedding ceremony, conducted in full accordance with Sharia law, was only considered a marriage contract between Muslims and held no legal validity in the United Kingdom. To make the marriage legally recognized, it was necessary to follow European legal procedures, such as having a civil ceremony and obtaining an official marriage certificate. After returning from Pakistan, Samia's friends noticed significant changes in her personality and behavior. She seemed sad, her eyes were dull, and she was no longer the cheerful, sociable person they knew. It was clear she felt deep resentment toward her parents. Any discussion about her husband or married life made her uncomfortable and angry. The root of the problem was Shakil's extreme jealousy. Even from another country, he tormented Samia by constantly calling her and demanding video chats at any time. This allowed him to monitor her whereabouts, activities, and the people she was with. His behavior was not only a way to control her, but also a demonstration of his dominance and authority over her. In early August of that year, during a phone call with a close friend, Samia admitted that she was at her breaking point. She felt completely drained, had lost all joy and hope for happiness or a bright future, and no longer wanted to live. She expressed deep hatred for Shakil, saying she never wanted to see him again. However, she couldn't share these feelings with her family because they were busy bragging to everyone about the lavish wedding they had prepared for her. In early September, unable to resolve issues related to the marriage visa, Samia was forced to return to Pakistan to live with the husband she disliked, Shakil. She wrote frequently to friends, describing her misery, her distaste for her marriage, and her feeling of being trapped with no way out. This lasted for a few months, but then she started complaining less, and her mood gradually changed. During her next visit to the United Kingdom, the reason for this change became clear. Samia had met a young man online named Syed Mukhtar Kazim, a British citizen of Pakistani descent like herself. Syed was born and raised in London, but had been living and working in the United Arab Emirates for several years. The two began corresponding and quickly developed feelings for each other. They secretly meet, and in October 2013, they saw each other in person for the first time. Samia immediately realized that Syed was the man she wanted to spend her life with. He was kind, caring, attentive, and treated her with love and respect. They have many interests in common, but also understand the dangers in their relationship. Despite this, they felt that life only had meaning when they were together. Samia shared her situation with her beloved Syed and expressed her willingness to end her marriage to start a new life with him. However, she could not get a divorce in a British court because under local law, she was not recognized as married. In the spring of 2014, Samia decided to confront Shakil and asked him for a divorce. He refused rudely, declaring that she would remain his until the end of her life. During another visit to the United Kingdom to see her parents, Samia secretly reached out to a local Islamic Sharia council, explaining that she had been forced into the marriage, which was grounds for annulment. She also converted from Sunni Islam to Shiite Islam, the religion Syed now practices. When the cleric from the council contacted Shakil to hear his perspective on their marriage, he once again refused to cooperate, angrily declaring that he would not consent to a divorce. Afterward, the Islamic Sharia Council of the United Kingdom annulled Samia's marriage, acknowledging that she had been forced into it due to family pressure. Her family was unaware that she had divorced Shakil and was planning to remarry, this time to the man she truly loved, Syed. In September 2014, Samia secretly married Syed. Unlike the previous marriage, this marriage was legally recognized, and they also received a marriage certificate to confirm its legality. The cleric who approved the annulment of her first marriage was also the one who presided over the nikah ceremony. Only a few close friends attended the intimate wedding. Samia and Syed was overjoyed. Samia confided in her friends that she felt like a princess in a fairy tale and could hardly believe her happiness was real. Sadly, this happy moment turned out to be the beginning of a nightmare and eventually led to exile. When her ex-husband, Shakil, demanded that she return to Pakistan, she informed him that she was no longer his wife and presented her new marriage certificate. Enraged, Shakil immediately contacted Samia's father, igniting a major family scandal. Her family tried to pressure her into returning to he, even resorting to threats, but she refused. This thing led to dire consequences. A few weeks later, while shopping with her younger sister, Samia was brutally attacked on the street. Her sister was left unharmed, but she was severely beaten with metal bars and narrowly avoided having her legs broken. Although police took her statement, but the identity of the attackers remained unknown, and the case was soon closed. At this time, Syed had to travel to Dubai for work, leaving his wife, Samia, in the United Kingdom, where she was waiting for a visa to join him. The waiting period was agonizing for her, filled with threats, conflicts with her relatives, and fears for her safety. Her parents tried to prove that her divorce from Shakil was valid, and even confronted the cleric who had officiated her marriage to Syed. Samia's mother was especially enraged, hurling insults at her daughter, accusing her of disgracing the family, and warning that she would face severe consequences. In the spring of 2015, Samia finally received her visa and was able to join Syed in Dubai. For her, it felt like an escape, as she feared her family would do everything in their power to prevent her from leaving and force her to return to Pakistan. To protect herself, she entrusted her passport to friends, who also purchased her plane ticket and accompanied her to the airport to ensure her safe departure. A new chapter of Samia's life began. The following year was the happiest of her life. She lives with Syed, the man she loves, who always cherishes and treats her with care. For the first time, she could drive a car, something her parents and former husband Shakil would never have allowed. In photos she shared on social media, she appeared radiant, confident, and more beautiful than ever. It was clear she was living the life she had always dreamed of. She hoped to become a mother soon, but unfortunately, that dream was not realized. Despite this, she and Syed remained optimistic about the future, planning their life together, unaware that her family had decided against her. Shortly after Samia left, her parents filed a missing persons report with the police, which they later attempted to reclassify as an abduction, accusing Syed of kidnapping her. Meanwhile, Shakil's family began plotting ways to force she to return. They realized that threatening her was no longer effective, but they still believed they could exploit her emotions and compassion to manipulate her. In June 2016, Samia received devastating news. Her aunt, Shakil's mother, had passed away. Heartbroken, Samia considered traveling to Pakistan for the funeral, but knew it could be dangerous. Many relatives still resent her for divorcing Shakil and remarrying Syed. Her actions were seen as treacherous and shameful. A week after the funeral, her mother called again with more distressing news. Her father's health had sharply declined. He was diabetic, and his condition had become critical. Samia feared that if he passed away, she could never forgive herself for not visiting him. Despite her own worries and Syed's dissuasion, she decides to go to Pakistan. Concerned for her safety, she promised her husband to stay in regular contact. On July 14, 2016, Samia arrived in Pakistan and stayed at a close friend's house. She left her passport and return ticket to Dubai with her friend, expressing her fear and insecurity and asking her friend to pray for her safe return to Syed. The first few days were relatively calm. She kept Syed and friend informed about her activities. She visited her aunt's grave with family and met several relatives. Her return flight to Dubai was scheduled for July 21. However, on July 20, Samia abruptly stopped all communication. On July 20, 2016, a heartbreaking incident occurred when Shahid contacted the police to report the death of his daughter, Samia. Upon arriving at the house where Samia had lived with Shakil, police found her lifeless body at the bottom of the stairs. Sadly, it was too late to save her. They found bruises on her body, which her parents attributed to her falling down the stairs. A small amount of pink foam was flowing from her mouth. Shahid speculated that she might have had a heart condition, causing her to fall and tumble down the stairs. Since no one was home at the time, she did not receive immediate help and passed away. When questioned about Shakil, Shahid explained that he was away on business. The police found no evidence of foul play at the scene and opted not to open a criminal investigation. An autopsy conducted the same day revealed no signs of violence, concluding that her death was due to natural causes. Samia was buried just a few hours after her death. Her sudden departure was not considered suspicious and was not investigated by the authorities, but it had a devastating impact on Syed. When Syed learned of his wife's, Samia, sudden death from a heart attack, he was in shock and disbelief. According to media reports, she chose to end her life due to depression because she could not have children. However, her family rejected this version. They claimed that she passed out, then fell down the stairs and broke her neck. The investigation revealed bitter truths. Syed quickly flew to Pakistan on the earliest available flight and went directly to the police station, alleging that Samia had been killed by her relatives and Shakil. He detailed the forced marriage she had endured, her subsequent escape, and the threats she had received from her family. This testimony completely changed the development of the case, forcing the authorities to determine this was a criminal act. However, by this time, Samia had already been buried, and the official report still stated she had died of natural causes. Determined to seek justice, Syed turned to European law enforcement and the media, as Samia was a British citizen, to push for further investigation. Samia's father, Shahid, initially agreed to an interview, attempting to depict Syed as a fraud and extortionist. However, when Syed presented their marriage certificate, a medical report, and post-mortem photos of Samia, authorities launched an investigation. The report revealed bruises on Samia's neck and legs, along with traces of male seminal fluid, suggesting she had been in an intimate encounter shortly before her death. But with whom, given that Shakil allegedly wasn't home that day? Syed held a press conference, presenting extensive evidence, including text, voice, and video messages from Samia, where she repeatedly expressed fear for her life. It is believed that the police may have taken bribes, leading to the immediate arrest of Shahid and Shakil. Investigations revealed that they never intended to let Samia's return to Dubai. They forced her to go to the house given to her as a wedding gift, where they searched for her passport and tickets, which she had given to a friend to keep. In a fit of rage, Shakil physically restrained her. When she tried to escape, they caught up with her on the stairs. Shakil strangled her with her scarf, while Shahid held her legs, ensuring she had no chance to survive. Shakil later confessed to this crime at the police station, although Shahid denied any involvement in the killing of his own daughter. In addition to Shahid and Shakil, Samia's uncle, who received a fake report before the autopsy, and the police chief in charge of the initial investigation have both been arrested. In court, Shakil retracted his confession, claiming it was made under coercion. He spent just over 2 years in prison before being released on bail in September 2018. In 2019, he remarried and again tried to move to the UK, but still without success. Samia's father, Shahid, was imprisoned from July to December 2016 and later released on bail. He died in January 2018 at the age of 52 due to deteriorating health. Before his death, he maintained his innocence and denied any involvement in his daughter's death. Samia's uncle and the commissioner were also released in the fall of 2016 without facing any penalties. Shortly afterwards, arrest warrants were issued in Pakistan for Samia's mother and younger sister, but they quickly returned to Bradford. Her younger sister, Mata, later gave a detailed interview, which accused her and Syed of being the cause of their family's breakdown, attempting to tarnish their reputations. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Roni Reuter. On the morning of Thursday, October 4, 2007, neighbors of Roni heard heart-wrenching screams and loud bangs coming from her apartment. Alarmed, they called 911 and requested authorities to investigate. The police arrived immediately, and when no one came to open the door, they forced their way inside. In the kitchen, they found a woman lying face down, wearing body armor, with wounds to her head, arms, and pregnant belly. It appeared she had tried to shield her unborn child by covering her stomach with her hands, causing both her hands and stomach to be injured. There were 2 wounds to her abdomen, indicating that the baby was the main target of the attack. The attacker then inflicted injuries to the back of her head. Tragically, both she and her unborn child were dead. The brutality of the crime left the police deeply shaken, questioning who could commit such a horrific act against a pregnant woman. A forensic investigation uncovered a spent 9mm cartridge case and 5 unused cartridges near the body. There were no signs of forced entry, robbery, or sexual assault, ruling out a random attack or burglary. This led investigators to believe the murder was personal and premeditated. It seems that Roni has a dangerous enemy who has harmed her. Police theorize that the attacker attacked Roni as she was preparing to leave the apartment to go to work, ambushing her when she opened the door. Detectives interviewed her neighbors, hoping to find witnesses or valuable leads. The neighbors reported hearing sounds resembling gunshots, leading authorities to suspect the killer used a silenced weapon. A neighbor reported seeing a skinny African-American teenager wearing a hooded sweatshirt, walking up the stairs to Roni's door at around 7:00 a.m., shortly before the incident. Later, another neighbor saw this person running out of the house, get into a small black car, and drive away from the parking lot. Police reviewed surveillance footage from cameras near the house. The footage captured a black car, likely a Volkswagen, arriving at 7:04 a.m. and leaving at 7:55 a.m., aligning with the time frame of the murder. However, the driver of the car has not yet been identified. Inside Roni's purse, investigators discovered a mysterious letter. The letter referenced Sean, the father of her unborn child, and claimed to have uncovered details about him. It alleged that Sean had romantic relationships with women from various countries, listing the names and phone numbers of 16 women he had affairs with. The letter also mentioned Roni's pregnancy, stating that Sean did not want the baby. Detectives suspected the murder was linked to Roni's pregnancy and believed Sean might have crucial information. The teenager seen near the house became the primary suspect, and both he and the black car were placed on a wanted list. Meanwhile, investigators began looking into Roni's social relationship to determine if she had any enemies. She was born in the small town of Potosi, Wisconsin. She met Sean at a charity event in Wisconsin, and the two quickly fell in love. After completing college, she moved to Deerfield, Illinois, a wealthy Chicago suburb with a population of 20,000. At the time of the murder, Roni was 42 years old, lived alone in her condominium. She was 7 months pregnant, eagerly preparing for the arrival of her first child, a baby girl she planned to name Skylar. The father of her child was Sean, 45, her partner of 17 years. Despite dating for many years, they did not marry or live together. Sean, a former Chicago Bears football player, was questioned by detectives for 10 hours. He shared how much he loved Roni and was looking forward to their child's birth. Roni deeply loved him, but Sean's feelings were more complex. He admitted to detectives that he had multiple affairs, which strained their relationship. He said that Roni knew about his infidelity, and it had caused her to grow distant from him. Despite this, he insisted he was excited to become a father. He appeared heartbroken over the tragic deaths of Roni and their unborn baby, and his emotions seemed genuine. Additionally, his strong, athletic build did not match the description of the thin teenager a neighbor claimed to have seen. Sean told the police that he had overslept that morning, he waking up at 9:15 a.m. and then went to a barbershop for a haircut. This alibi was confirmed by the barbershop administrator. However, the barbershop was close to Roni's house, just a 10-minute walk from her home, which made the detectives suspicious. They considered the possibility that Sean might have killed Roni or orchestrated the crime by hiring someone else. Despite his alibi, investigators did not eliminate him as a suspect and continued looking into his potential involvement. They questioned Sean's friends to evaluate whether he was capable of murder, his relationship with Roni, and whether he truly wanted the child. Sean's close friends have strenuously denied that he committed the crime, insisting that he was delighted to be a father, despite his relationships with other women. When detectives visited Sean's home for a follow-up interview, they discovered parenting books and baby items, indicating that he was preparing for fatherhood. During the interview, police asked who he thought might be responsible for the crime. He listed 16 women he had recently been involved with, and emphasized one name in particular, Monika Kurowska. Sean said that Monika, a fitness model from Poland, was someone he had dated while living in Europe. Their relationship ended a year ago, but Monika couldn't accept the breakup and began stalking him. She traveled to the United States and started following him. One night, she came to his apartment complex, ringing all the doors, including those of his neighbors and his own. When he stepped outside, he discovered a broken window and noticed Monika had blood on her hand. He found her behavior very worrying and dangerous, so he took out a restraining order against her. Sean suspects that Monika is the one who sent letters to Roni and his other lovers. These letters caused conflict between him and Roni. He suspects Monica because she follows him and knows all his secrets. In addition, the letters contain common errors in people who are just learning to speak English, like Monica. Even his mother received such a letter. Detectives became interested in Monica and eventually located her. During questioning, Monica denied any involvement in Ronnie's death, claiming she had an alibi. She was at work on the morning of the murder. The police confirmed her alibi. Monica shared a slightly different account of events. She admitted traveling to the USA to see Sean, hoping to win him back. Upon arriving at his home, she discovered him with another woman. In a fit of anger, she knocked hard on the window and accidentally broke it. Following this incident, she ended her relationship with Sean and claimed it was the last time she saw him. She also denied sending letters to Ronnie or Sean's mother, but the police remained skeptical of her story and continued to view her as a suspect. Despite their efforts, the investigation stalled. They suspect both Sean and Monica, as each had a motive to harm Ronnie, but both had alibis. No other suspects emerged. Then, the case took an unexpected turn. Police continued to question all of Ronnie and Sean's relatives. During the investigation, an acquaintance of theirs expressed suspicions about Marnie Yang, who was said to be obsessed with Sean. Investigators learned that Marnie had been in a relationship with Sean. The two had met 6 years earlier at a Chicago Bears convention, and Sean later reached out to her for help with real estate. Marnie, a realtor, had facilitated several real estate transactions for him. Marnie, single mother of 3 children, worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, including as a realtor, a waitress, and even photographer. Over time, she grew close to Sean, and their relationship continued up until Ronnie's murder. It was later revealed that they had slept together the day before the crime. This led investigators to scrutinize Marnie more closely. After speaking with her family and friends, they concluded that Marnie was obsessed with Sean. She viewed him as her possession and wouldn't leave him alone. When she discovered he had other relationships, she became furious. Her jealousy drove her to want he all to herself, believing he should belong only to her. She calls him her boyfriend, despite the fact that their relationship was short and fleeting. Detectives questioned Marnie, but she firmly denied any involvement in the crime. Despite this, she was unable to provide an alibi for the time of the murder. She claimed she was at home with her children, but the lack of evidence to support this made her the primary suspect. Detectives believe Marnie fits the description of the person they are looking for. With her petite build, she could easily be mistaken for a teenager if she was wearing a sweatshirt and hood. After obtaining a search warrant for the home, police discovered several important clues. Upon examining Marnie's computer, they discovered she had access to Sean's email and had been secretly monitoring his messages. Among the emails, they found letters from Monica to Sean written in broken English. Marnie had mimicked Monica's writing style, including the grammatical errors. She sent anonymous letters to several women involved in Sean's life, such as Ronnie and his mother. These letters contained accusations about Sean's relationships, and investigators concluded that her intention was to frame Monica as the main suspect. However, her plan ultimately failed. The police discovered a broken computer hard drive and several bank statements in Marnie's trash. The bank statements showed that she had hired a private investigator to collect detailed information about all the women in Sean's life, including their full names and addresses. Inside Marnie's apartment, investigators found postal receipts with the addresses of Ronnie and several other women who had received anonymous letters. It also came to light that Marnie owned a gun. In September 2005, she was stopped at the airport for purchasing and transporting 2 pistols and 200 rounds of ammunition. Although she provided the required paperwork, the weapons were declared and shipped to Chicago. Marnie's former lover, who was a deputy sheriff, confirmed that she owned multiple pistols and was highly skilled at shooting. One of her guns was a 9mm pistol, the same type used to kill Ronnie, though this particular weapon was never located. Investigators also learned that Marnie had attempted to construct her own silencer. Her bank statements revealed she had purchased a book titled How to Make a Disposable Silencer, along with a hacksaw and other materials from Home Depot. It can be used to make a disposable muffler. Detectives questioned Marnie about the evidence they had gathered. She said she bought the book as a joke gift for a friend and insisted she did not own a 9mm pistol or have any involvement in the crime. Despite her denials, 40-year-old Marnie was arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of Ronnie and her unborn child, based on the circumstantial evidence. The prosecution argued that Marnie's actions were driven by jealousy. She was infatuated with Sean and obsessed with keeping him to herself. To eliminate her rival, she sent anonymous letters to other women in Sean's life, causing many of them to leave him. However, Ronnie stayed. Although upset with Sean, Ronnie maintained their relationship, especially since she was carrying his child, a child he deeply wanted. Marnie doesn't want this child to be born because she knows that it might cause Sean and Ronnie to become more attached. Marnie's primary objective was to kill both the child and Ronnie. During the trial, witnesses familiar with Marnie testified about her extreme obsession with Sean and the drastic actions she took for his attention. They revealed that she had hacked into Sean's email account, read his correspondence with other women, and angrily deleted messages before he could see them. When she discovered emails from a woman named Monica, she devised a plan. Marnie, in Monica's writing style, sent an article exposing Sean from an anonymous email account with many errors. She spent the entire day talking about Sean, causing her colleagues to become concerned about her behavior. At the trial, even Marnie's daughter, Emilian, testified against her mother. Emilian, 20, expressed concern about Marnie's erratic behavior and obsession with Sean, which seemed to have driven her out of control. Sean also took the stand, detailing his tumultuous relationship with Marnie. He described their relationship as intense, but revealed that Marnie became deeply upset when she found out about other women in his life. She tried every way to keep him, but the obsession in her actions eventually drove him away. Sean said he had been planning to break up with her. When asked whether he believed Marnie could have murdered Ronnie, who was pregnant, he hesitated and expressed doubt. The prosecution's key witness was Christy Passion, a friend of Marnie's. Christy testified that Marnie had been reading Sean's emails and frequently expressed dissatisfaction with his relationships with other women. In the summer of 2007, Marnie confided in Christy about her frustration over Sean dating other women, and even mentioned plans to kill him. At the time, Christy took it as a joke and assumed she was simply venting. However, when Marnie discovered that Ronnie was pregnant, her focus shifted. She saw Ronnie as her main rival and became determined to eliminate Ronnie's at any cost. She told Christy about her plans to kill Ronnie instead of Sean, believing this would allow her and Sean to be happy together. Christy once again paid no attention to this, thinking it was just Marnie's imagination. Marnie later admits to Christy that she brought the weapon to Ronnie's apartment, but could not bring herself to do it. This confession makes Christy nervous, but Christy tries to comfort her and stop her from acting on her emotions. The day before the murder, she asked Christy to read her fortune to see if she would succeed in killing Ronnie. As an experienced tarot reader, Christy laid out the cards, and the one Marnie chose suggested success. Obsessed with the idea of killing Ronnie, the pregnant woman, Marnie ignored Christy's pleas and remained determined to carry out her plan. Christy later contacted Marnie, and they arranged to meet. During their conversation, Christy secretly wore a recording device, and the recording was later used as evidence. At this meeting, Marnie confessed to killing Ronnie, explaining the details of the crime. She revealed that she had disguised herself by wearing a wig, dark makeup, and gloves to avoid leaving any evidence. Marnie said she knocked on Ronnie's apartment door, and when Ronnie opened it, she drew her weapon and entered the house. She acted quickly, attacked Ronnie before Ronnie could scream, She admitted to being cautious, ensuring she didn't touch anything in the apartment and keeping her gloves on to avoid leaving traces. Marnie also described renting a black car, using a disposable phone, and then throw away the murder weapon, wig, gloves, and clothing in separate trash bins. She planned the murder meticulously so that it could not be detected, but Christie would testify against her. The recorded conversation became the prosecution's most compelling piece of evidence during the trial. The police investigation showed that Marnie's work computer had directions to Roney's house saved. They also confirmed that she rented a black Volkswagen on October 3. The vehicle's route was tracked from the rental location to Roney's apartment and back. However, the defense argued that there was no physical evidence that Marnie was at the scene, including DNA, fingerprints, or phone records. The case was based largely on circumstantial evidence in Christie's testimony. The defense wanted to discredit Christie by emphasizing her dubious background. They revealed that she had once claimed to be a psychic in the U.S. Army and said she was the sole survivor of a mission in the Middle East. However, it was later proven that she had fabricated her military service and had never even been in the Middle East. She had lied to enhance her qualifications for the role. The defense argued that Christie's testimony was unreliable and accused the police of falsely assigning blame to Marnie for the murder. The defense argued that there was no concrete evidence against Marnie, other than circumstantial evidence and recordings made under duress. The lawyer argued that Marnie confessed out of fear and in an attempt to protect her children, as her eldest son was under suspicion. Furthermore, an unidentified fingerprint was discovered on the door handle of Roney's apartment. The lawyer emphasized that the fingerprint did not belong to Marnie and that the police had failed to determine who it belonged to. The prosecutor acknowledged the existence of the fingerprint, confirming it was not in any database. However, they contended that the print could have been left by anyone passing by and was not necessarily linked to the crime. Marnie was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing Roney Reuter and Roney's unborn child. She received 2 life sentences without parole. She and her lawyers opposed the sentence and filed an appeal, but it was denied. Marnie later claimed that she deliberately confessed to the murder to Christie to protect her son and stop people from bothering her. However, no one believed her explanation. Why would she include so many specific details about the murder if they weren't true? This makes no sense. The defense team argued that the black car seen on surveillance footage was not the Volkswagen that Marnie had rented. They also stated that a man had informed the police he had stolen Marnie's gun months before the murder, meaning she did not possess a gun at the time. Additionally, the murder weapon was never recovered at the crime scene. Fingerprints belonging to someone else were found, and they did not match Marnie's or any family member's fingerprints. The lawyer pointed out that male DNA was discovered on the cartridges at the crime scene, but it did not match Marnie's DNA and instead belonged to an unidentified man. The defense stressed that forensic analysis of the shooting angle indicated the attacker was taller than Marnie. Crucially, new CCTV footage from a hair salon showed Sean arriving for a haircut much later than he had claimed during police questioning. The footage revealed that he arrived at 10 a.m. on the day of Roney's murder, and she was killed before 8 a.m. Sean had previously told police he slept until 9:15 a.m. that morning, but evidence showed he had already sent a message to Roney and made several phone calls by 8:50 a.m. This video exposed inconsistencies in Sean's timeline, suggesting he could have had enough time to commit the murder. While the defense suspects Sean of being the perpetrator, they have not yet succeeded in having the case reopened. Marnie is still in prison and maintains her innocence. Sean, a former Chicago Bears player, played for the team for 11 seasons from 1984 to 1994, including their Super Bowl win in 1985. Having overcome his struggles in the United States, he now lives in London, United Kingdom, where he works as an NFL analyst for Sky Sports, a British sports channel, and regularly shares his expert analysis on weekly broadcasts. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Carrie Ann Jopek. Carrie Ann Jopek was born on August 17, 1968, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a large city with a population of over 500,000. Her parents, Carolyn and Robert, divorced when she was very young. Shortly after, her mother remarried a man named Frederick Toussaint. The family lived in downtown Milwaukee along with 2 daughters, the youngest of whom was named Maggie. Carrie grew up in a loving family and had a close relationship with Frederick, whom she considered her biological father. She did not know of her biological father's existence, as he did not communicate with her. Carrie was well educated and had everything she needed. She was friendly and kind, which helped her make many friends, including older teenagers. However, during her teenage years, Carrie's personality began to change, leading to conflicts with her mother and stepfather. When she discovered that Frederick was not her biological father, she became very angry with her parents. She often used this information against him in arguments. Some relatives described Carrie as stubborn, while others thought she was simply going through a challenging period in her life, especially since she was only 13 years old at the time. On March 15, 1982, Carrie was allowed by her parents to stay overnight at her friend Marsh's house. Since both girls were in 7th grade, they went to school together the next morning, March 16. However, because they were in different classes, they could only see each other at lunchtime. Carrie was upset because her teacher had reprimanded her for arguing with another student who had spilled paint on her. The teacher then contacted Carrie's parents to report Carrie's behavior and truancy. The teachers suggested that Carrie's mother pick her up after school to discuss her actions. However, Carrie's house was close enough to the school, so her mother allowed Carrie to walk home by herself. Carrie was upset. She knew her mother and stepfather would probably scold her, so she didn't want to go home. Her friend comforted her, and they parted ways after school. Although reluctant, Carrie had to go home because she lived only a few blocks from school. Normally, it would only take her 3 minutes to walk home, but that day, she never returned. It is important to note that the 1980s in America were generally a safe time. People trusted each other, and crime rates were low compared to today. Additionally, the incident occurred in a crowded area where everyone knew each other, so no one thought it was strange for a 13-year-old girl to walk home from school alone. Carrie did not come home. Carolyn waited for her at home and then went out to look for her. Carolyn thought that Carrie had stopped to visit a friend on the way home and would be back soon. It is important to note that they could not contact Carrie because cell phones had not yet been invented. As the night wore on, Carolyn grew increasingly concerned. She set out again to look for her daughter. First, she went to see Carrie's best friend, Robin, who lived across the street. Unfortunately, no one in Robin's house had seen or heard from Carrie since school ended. Next, Carolyn contacted Marsh, who had spent the night with Carrie. However, Marsh did not see Carrie after she left. Eager to help, Carrie's friends joined the search and began checking with neighbors and classmates who might have seen her after school, but no one had any information. By 11 p.m., a search party of local volunteers who knew the family was formed. Many neighbors, friends, and acquaintances took to the streets to patrol the area and ask questions. Unfortunately, they could not find any information about the Carrie. They decided to wait for Carrie until the next morning. On March 17, when the girl still had not returned home, Carolyn went to the police station to report her missing. By then, the Carrie had been missing for almost a day, prompting police to act quickly, as the situation could be serious. Initially, the primary theory was that Carrie had run away, as she was known to be a difficult teenager who sometimes skipped classes and often spent the night at friends' houses. Police thought that Carrie was simply spending time with friends. However, after interviewing all her friends, they realized this was not the case. None of them had seen Carrie after school, leading them to conclude that something must have happened to her on her way home. They then began questioning residents living along her route that day. But these inquiries yielded no useful information. None of the residents had seen Carrie or noticed anything unusual. The police discovered that Carrie had been upset with her family after learning that her stepfather was not her biological father. Police believed this revelation might have driven her to search for her biological father, whom she could have gone to see that day. By this time, a day had passed since Carrie left school, and there was still no news about her. The police located her biological father, Robert, who lived in a different area of Malak, hoping she might be with him. Unfortunately, when they contacted him, their hopes were dashed. Robert explained that he had been at work all day the previous day and had not seen Carrie. A thorough inspection was carried out at the house of the Carrie. Police searched through all her belongings for clues, but found nothing significant. Consequently, the search for the missing person continued. A day after her disappearance, there was still hope that the teenager was alive. However, the critical window for finding a missing person is 48 hours, after which the chances of a successful rescue decrease significantly. Therefore, the police needed to act quickly. During the investigation, the police focused on Johns, who lived just a few houses away from Carrie's family. John was 17 at the time and had developed a close relationship with Carrie. The police learned that he had a rebellious personality and a history of legal trouble, including convictions for petty theft and selling marijuana. Despite their 4-year age difference, John showed an interest in Carrie, which raised concerns. The police decided to investigate further and brought John in for questioning. John adamantly denied any involvement in Carrie's disappearance, claiming that he had not even seen her that day. The police were unable to gather any useful information during their questioning, and there was no solid evidence against John. As a result, he was released. The police then turned their attention to her stepfather, Frederick. In these cases, the perpetrator was often someone close to the victim, and cases involving stepfathers were not uncommon, which added to their interest in him. The police looked closely at her family, especially the relationship between Carrie and Frederick. They discovered that the two had recently been fighting, a change from their previous relationship. Frederick attributed the turmoil to Carrie's adolescence, believing that her hormones had made her more irritable and prone to anger over small matters. Despite this, he maintains that he would never harm her. An anonymous witness reported some details regarding her stepfather, Frederick. They mentioned that the day after Carrie went missing, Frederick poured a new concrete slab in the backyard. The witness suggested that this may have been Frederick's way of disposing of the body by burying it underneath the concrete slab. This information seems suspicious and should be investigated. The concrete slab was examined using ground-penetrating radar, and no suspicious voids were detected. When the area beneath the slab was excavated, it was found to be empty. The yard was well maintained, showing no signs of recent digging. The police decided to conduct a second round of questioning with the Carrie's friends, focusing on the possibility that she might have run away with a boyfriend. Although Carrie never mentioned having a boyfriend to her parents, the police speculated that she may have kept this relationship secret. However, her friends firmly denied this possibility, insisting that Carrie was not in a relationship with anyone. The police tried to collect evidence, but it is important to note that forensic science in the 1980s was not as advanced as it is today. At that time, there was no DNA testing, trackable cell phones, cameras, or GPS technology. This made finding evidence more difficult. As a result, the police could not find any clues. Carrie seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Lack of evidence then caused the case to stall. The police did not have a strong motive for Carrie's abduction, nor could they find a suspect. To raise public awareness of their daughter's disappearance, Carrie's parents turned to the media for help. They appealed to anyone with information about Carrie to come forward, but still, no leads came. The investigation was stalled due to lack of evidence. More than a year later, on September 2, 1983, a mysterious body was found in the John family home. The contractor was repairing the back porch. He leveled the ground and dug up a significant amount of dirt. While doing so, he noticed a foul odor coming from a pile of disturbed dirt. Upon inspection, he discovered human remains. The contractor immediately called the police. Everyone believed the remains to be those of Carrie. The body was then subjected to dental records analysis to determine the identity of the remains. All members of John's family were questioned. During his police interview, John denied any involvement and requested a lawyer. A year earlier, the police had lacked substantial evidence to charge or detain him, so they released him but continued to view him as a suspect. The remaining members of John's family have denied any involvement in the murder. The medical examiner investigated Carrie's cause of death and discovered severe injuries to her head and neck. She had significant internal bleeding with lacerations on her left side. These injuries suggested that she had been attacked by someone else, leading to the case being classified as a homicide. Unfortunately, the autopsy was unable to provide enough information to determine whether rape had occurred. Carrie's body was found in her friend John's backyard, but this does not mean that he was responsible for her death or that he buried her there. Witnesses said that on the day she disappeared, there was a party at John's house. Police had to piece together the case from scratch, with few clues to follow. And so much time had passed since the party that it was difficult for those who were there to remember what happened. Several teenagers were interviewed about the party at John's house. Some claimed they were there but could not remember any details. Others said they had only heard about the party and were not actually there. John claimed he did not organize any events that day, and police found no evidence to contradict his statement. 4 days after Carrie's body was discovered, police received a new lead. A witness identified Jose Ferreira, a 16-year-old boy who lived next door to Carrie. He was seen in John's backyard when Carrie's body was discovered, which raised some suspicion. The police decided to pursue the lead and invited Jose to the police station for questioning. Jose denied any involvement in Carrie's death or disappearance. Jose knew her well and was friends with her, so he was very upset when he discovered her body in the backyard. He claimed that he did it to honor his old friend. Jose's story seemed credible. He was also questioned about a party at John's house on the day Carrie went missing, but he said it never happened. The police had no evidence against Jose, so they had to release him after questioning. Friends described Jose as friendly and cheerful, and no one believed he would hurt Carrie. They spent a lot of time together and were close friends. The investigation continued, but no leads were found. The case hit a dead end. It wasn't until 33 years after Carrie's murder that the investigation made any progress. On October 11, 2015, a man contacted a journalist to confess to the murder. His name was Jose Ferreira. In addition to contacting the journalist, he called the hotline and admitted to killing 13-year-old Carrie Ann Jopek years earlier. He also confessed to his wife about the crime. Journalists and switchboard operators were stunned by his confession and immediately notified the police. At the same time, Jose's wife learned of his crimes and went to the nearest police station to report him. Jose was 50 years old at the time. The police reviewed the case file. Despite Jose's confession, the police were in no hurry to arrest him. 2 days after his telephone confession, Jose turned himself into the police station and gave a detailed account of the events of 33 years ago. His sudden actions and confession were because he believed it would prevent his wife from getting a divorce. This statement puzzled the police. Jose said that on the day of the incident. Carrie returned home from school. She noticed a party going on at John's house. She wanted to avoid going home where she would face punishment, so she decided to join the party. At the party, she met Jose and they engaged in conversation. Then they went down to the basement together to find some wine. On the way down to the basement, he kissed her and she agreed. As they walked down the stairs to the basement, Carrie suddenly changed her mind and said she wanted to leave. In a fit of rage, he pushed her, causing her to lose her balance and fall down the stairs, resulting in a broken neck. In a moment of loss of control, he raped her, not knowing that she had died from the fall. His actions were classified as sexual assault and use of force. He defended himself by claiming that he had loved Carrie. He felt offended by her decision to leave, but he insisted that he did not want her to die. He panicked and dismissed the incident as an accident. Jose feared going to jail and ruining his life. He seized the opportunity during a lively party when no one noticed his presence in the basement. He needed to dispose of the body quickly to avoid being seen. Jose hid the body, and when night fell, he took a shovel and dragged Carrie into the backyard. In the dark, he quietly dug a hole and buried her. He believed that his plan had gone smoothly and that no one had seen him. However, the police were baffled by his story. They found it hard to believe that at such a crowded party, no one had noticed them together, and no one had noticed him digging the hole and burying Carrie. The police suspected that Jose might have had an accomplice, but he adamantly denied that anyone else was involved. Carrie's family said that Jose often visited them and was present at the farewell and burial. Carrie's mother remembered that Jose had mentioned being haunted by Carrie's ghost, which surprised them, but they ignored it at the time. While this could have been a warning sign, no one thought that the killer could be one of the friendly people in the neighborhood. Jose later revealed that Carrie's spirit had haunted him for years, making it impossible for him to live a normal life. This ultimately contributed to his decision to confess to the crime to ease his conscience. During the trial, the prosecutor asked for Jose to be convicted of second-degree murder. The defense argued that the case was manslaughter. Initially, bail was set at $200,000, but Jose then began to recant his confession. The prosecution's case relied heavily on Jose's confession. It would have been difficult to convince the jury of his guilt without any evidence. Ultimately, the prosecution offered a plea deal. In March 2017, Jose Ferreira agreed to plead guilty to sexually assaulting Carrie, which reduced his prison sentence to 7 years. The final sentence was handed down 35 years after Carrie was murdered. In 2022, Jose was released from prison and moved to the nearby town of Glendale, Wisconsin. He was listed in a police database as a potential sex offender and placed on supervision. Carrie's family expressed outrage that the man who murdered and raped a 13-year-old girl was released after only 7 years. He now lives a quiet life, as if nothing had happened, and as if he had not taken an innocent life.